8. We're at the Global Science Conference, and what I intend to do is give you a workshop on the greatest health secret that I have seen in my lifetime. All opinions expressed by me are my own and should not reflect on the opinions or philosophical viewpoint of Dean Stonier or Global Sciences. We're giving you this information for informational and educational purposes only. We are not permitted under law to use the word cure, so we'll probably have to refer to spontaneous remissions, that being the federal law. And once again, I'm responsible for all the opinions I offer tonight, and all of the opinions have been checked, so we're dealing with actuality here, not just reality. The difference between actuality, Napoleon Bonaparte, the real, died in 1832 on Elba. The reality is that we have about a dozen Napoleon Bonapartes in the funny farms, Camarillo, Norwalk, and Los Angeles, and they really think that they're Napoleons, and that's their reality. So when you hear the two words, you have to separate reality, which is only your imagination, from actuality, which is that which works independently. Now, how many of you were in the free lecture this morning? Okay, let's do it the easy way. How many were not in the lecture this morning? Well, good grief, I won't have to repeat myself so much. But I would like to say one thing. If 5 or 6 years ago anyone had told me that I would be putting my professional reputation as a physicist on the line and telling you that there was a known cure for all known diseases that have been hospital tested to date, and that it's been suppressed by the medical community, I would have told that person he or she was crazy. But this is true. There has been a totally valid cure, for example, for AIDS since March of 1990. And it was discovered at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, New York City, in the spring of 1990. It was mentioned 3 times in the press in America and then totally suppressed. In other words, these data could cut so thoroughly into the incomes of doctors and hospitals and diagnostic clinics that it would devastate HMOs and medicine as we know it in this country. And taking this way down the abstraction ladder, one example is that if you have cancer and go to the conventional treatment, allopathic treatment, which happens to be surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, the average cancer patient in the USA spends $375,000 and does not live 5 years. A few people do, many do not. But if you use the information for yourself and others and not tell anyone that is revealed in this paper, and by the way, they're here now, and Judith has them in the back row. A cancer cure costs the price of this pack of nickel chewing gum, which I paid $1.32 for at the Chicago airport, and it will work. And we have hundreds of cases, much to my surprise, where this has happened, and during the lecture we'll tell you why and how it happens, and why and how we have hundreds of medically certified AIDS cures, people with full-blown AIDS, not just HIV, they might live for 10 years. But I funded a study at a hospital in Newport Beach, California in 1995, where all of the AIDS patients got better, their symptoms were gone, and they went back to work, where over half of the control study died. And these tests will be shown tonight to anyone who is a medical professional, a doctor, chiropractor, who has a license, because I had to sign 5 pages of legal agreements that I would not reveal these data to anyone who was not a medical professional. But you're welcome to look at them. Any doctors, we ask you to note the date, for example, that the patient came in. This happens to be 9/06/95. He had an HIV count of 412,000. You want to get a close-up on this, Mark? And then we'll explain to the audience what we have here. When he came into the clinic dying, he had an HIV count of 412,000 HIV particles per milliliter per cc of blood. And this was on 9/6/95. A week later, he had 212,256. Then finally, at the end of the study, which was 11/05/95, he had 0 or less than 100 particles per milliliter, less than 100 copies in his blood. When we began getting reams of this data, the diagnostic laboratory, the best in California, in San Leandro, California, would not return it to the doctor. They said, we have not seen any cure for HIV. The government has spent at that time $1.2 billion looking for vaccines, antibiotics, and things like that. Not one cure. How are you claiming dozens of patients here are cured? Are you substituting blood from young people who've never had the disease? No. They still weren't satisfied. They had the secretaries of this immunodiagnostic laboratory, San Leandro, Dr. Higgins, call down to our clinic. What are you doing down there? You've got HIV cures that are coming up daily. The secretaries were told not to gossip with their friends, the secretaries in Northern California, and eventually we began getting the data back. Now we have stacks of these. I have not touched them, I have not altered them, and most of them, the names have been scratched out to preserve patient confidentiality. And what I am here with proof, not just multi-level marketing bullshit and anecdotal data, but clinical tests, all the blood workup, everything a doctor needs to know. How are the T cells coming? How's the sedimentation rate? How are all the other things are covered in these studies? And this is my proof. I'll stand on it. So what you're getting tonight is the truth. And the truth is that if you have a friend with Epstein-Barr who's been all over the country, well, in your case, Canada and the U.S., trying for a cure, the cure has been here since March of 1990, and you just haven't heard about it. If you have someone with hepatitis, A, B, or C, the cure is here and will cost $1.32, which is the cost of one 2U6 9-volt transistor radio battery, which is the heart of this blood electrification. And the process consists of this: putting a very small microcurrent, 50 to 100 microamperes, into the circulating blood of the individual who is ill. By the way, how many engineers, physicists, ham radio operators, electronic dabblers do we have in here? Great, Mark. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hi, Sam. For the people who are listening to the tape, about 6 of you will be able to follow the conversation. It'll get a little bit technical here, just to show you we've done our homework. To get that 50 to 100 microamperes into the bloodstream, during the course of this investigation, which I funded, I haven't made anything on this, I've never charged a patient a single nickel. I gave the blood cleaning equipment to the hospitals and doctors who wanted to use it in Southern California, until guess what happened? When they had stacks of cures, I was called into the board of directors meetings of one of the large hospitals in Newport Beach and told, get your stuff out of here and don't come around anymore. And I said, why? They said, when we started these tests with you, we thought it was phony, a fraud, another con game. You've cured these people. Under your rules, we could not charge them except for services that they ordered, like tests. You will bankrupt the medical profession in America if you use this instead of the chemicals, pharmaceuticals, chemotherapy, herbs, whatever the hell they were doing that made these people worse, not better. And about a year and a half ago, the cover of one of our, was it Time Magazine or Business Week, had David Wu, David Hogue, the doctor who had gotten the Man of the Year award for making combination cocktail therapies for AIDS patients and causing apparent cures. This combination cocktail therapy consisted of DDT, AZT, DD5, things like this. And yes, it reduced the HIV count in the blood, but what they did not tell you, and what we have many articles today to prove, 1/3, roughly, of the gross population of HIV and AIDS got gastrointestinal, GI disturbances, vomiting, nausea, sickness, where they could no longer use the chemicals. 1/3 of them it did no good for whatsoever, and only 30-some% of them who got better were told that the minute you stop taking these chemical substances, you will surely die, because the AIDS viruses in your body have become so virulent that they will take over. In a few days you will be uncontrollable and you will die. So much for the continuing 1.3 billion as of a couple of months ago that has been spent in the academic community looking for a cure which was chemical. And all the time, for many, many years, the actual answer to all, not some, but all of man's diseases, this is infectious diseases that depend on other aliens in your blood, bacteria, germs, parasites, pathogens, viruses, can be easily handled electronically. Now, here's what you do. Are you wearing one of these things? No? Well, we'll do it. Russ is one of the ethical manufacturers. There are very few ethical manufacturers that I know of that in SOTA, S-O-T-A, and I didn't know till a while back that S-O-T-A meant state-of-the-art instruments. He makes this little box, and as I've turned it on, you'll see a red and a green light flashing here. I'll try to get the house lights off of it, which shows that the battery is working and that you're getting a polarity reversal. That means you have to reverse the polarity about 3.92 times every second to keep your blood from being damaged by electrolysis. When you put direct current through your blood, a process similar to electroplating will move certain of the ions into and out of the cells and can cause damage. So what this unit does, it provides a biphasic. That means the current goes up and then it goes down, polarity reversal, current, so that it cannot damage any living tissue, blood cell, body fluid, muscle, nerve, tendon. This is totally benign. The only side effect, which we did have in the first 2 years of my studies, was detoxification. So you put this totally safe device on your wrist. Well, let's do that.
What was the frequency?
3.92 hertz. That is not critical. It can be about 3 to 5, and then some other problems emerge, like harmonics, skin effect, etc. With a piece of stretch Velcro, which I made for this one, they normally don't sell them this way, but I want to show you the easy way to do this. The unit can be strapped on your arm. This is also custom made, and none of the manufacturers provides this because the measurement between the arteries where we put those, and we'll go into these next, we'll give you the chance hands-on to do a few yourself so you'll feel confident with it, are put on a neoprene stretch pad. And we thought of neoprene late in the game because neoprene is what they make divers' wetsuits out of, scuba divers. And the moisture doesn't soak into the neoprene like it does into the stretch Velcro elastic. And it stays on the surface, so the moisture doesn't short the current that should normally be going into your blood. Now, where we've put this on my wrist, not yours, my wrist is bigger than some people, is one electrode which has been pre-moistened in salt water, goes directly over the place where you feel your pulse, which is called the radial, R-A-D-I-A-L, artery, not vein, artery. The second one goes over the ulnar, capital U-L-N-A-R, and we have accessed the places on your body which are the most convenient, easiest to put on. This takes seconds. I'm doing it very slowly now. You plug the electrodes into the box, which provides a maximum of 3 to 7 milliamperes into the skin, which by the time it gets through the skin, squamous epithelial, through the superficial fasciolata, through the subcutaneous sebaceous, through the other 7 layers of nameable tissue between the outside surface, your skin, and the blood going through your arteries, will drop because of resistance and voltage drop until you have 50 to 100 micro, M-I-C-R-O, amperes left. We'll turn this on, adjust this until it's comfortable. These aren't wet now, but they will be when you're using them. And if you're shy, you might want to pull down your sleeve. And very few people will notice that you're wearing a device which will save your life, will add years to your health, years to your happiness. In my case, I lost 145 pounds, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And a number of people in here remember me when I had male pattern baldness. We're getting a lot of hold up your hands. Let's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Thank you, Mark.
Tape from years ago.
And from years ago, I was a goddamn mess. I was dying in my own whatever I'd had, like virus injected into me for polio vaccine in the 1950s. These things were in my body. They were messing up my libido. They were messing up my joy for life, my energy, my sleep patterns. Not anymore. And neither will yours. Now, when you put this 50 to 100 microamperes into your blood, you do not need antibiotics, pills, herbs, enzymes, these hundreds of things that are on sale by these multi-level entrepreneurs and geniuses. And I don't blame them for trying to make a living, but have you noticed? You've seen some of these people around every year, maybe with a new product every second or third year. And you notice something about them? They're getting older, tireder looking, balder, fatter, sluggisher, and every year I seem to be getting younger. I turned 73 years old in January, and people at the bar are not exactly asking for my ID, but I've knocked about 30 years off my, wouldn't you say, Sam? My dear friend Sam Johnson is here, and he has a little center, Port Richey. He's known me for a number of years. And some people say, Bob, is that you? What are you doing? I said, I'm putting a little electricity into my blood, and I'm keeping my blood as pristine and healthy as it was the day I was born. Because 4 hours after I was born and I was breathing, my body had taken in enough Candida albicans and other junk from the atmosphere to start making me sick by the time I was 23 years old and dying by the time I was 50. And, well, I don't know, we can go on and on about this. Why did I lose 145 pounds? I don't know, but we have a theory. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
For years now, you've been taught that diets will control weight. You've been taught that pills, legal methamphetamines, other things can control your weight. But any of you people who are like me, I had spent tens of thousands of dollars with diet programs, with shots, with pregnant mare urine that was shot into my hip to make me lose weight. I'd tried everything, and when I'd get off the starvation regime, I would gain back whatever I'd lost, plus quite a few pounds extra. I'm here to tell you now, and this is opinion, not statement of fact. We're trying to separate the two tonight. It is not what you eat that makes you overweight. Get this, it's not what you eat that has anything to do with what you weigh. It is how much of what you eat that's stored in your body and not eliminated that makes you overweight. Doesn't that sound a little bit more logical? And what keeps that weight in your body? There are 140 known, and this is in your medical textbooks, there are 140 known parasites indigenous to America. There are 500 plus indigenous to Africa, and the tropics have many others. About 10% of this 140 parasites that live in America, and that you're bound to have by now if you're past a few days old, use your body the way we send cattle to a feedlot and fatten them up before we send them to market. In other words, those bugs, those parasites, change the L15, they change the protein levels in your hypothalamus, your apostat, so that you store weight so that they will survive and they will eat. And too bad about you, but if you get Ebola or some of the emerging viruses, they kill you so fast that you can't change any weight. And if you get on a plane with Ebola in Africa and get off in New York, you're dead before you can infect all the people on the plane. In other words, a lot of these viruses are not going to survive because they kill the host. These parasites who've been with us, depending on whether you're a creationist or an evolutionist, for a number of years, have just changed your appetite so that they get the food and you get fat and you don't get any better and you can't lose that weight till the parasites are gone. And how do you get rid of all the parasites in your body for sure? Blood electrification. And that's in U.S. government documents here, in dozens of patents. So if anybody says you're crazy as I am, have the internet fax you over a copy, for example, of patent number 5188738, issued February 23rd, 1993, to Stephen Colley, K-A-A-L-I, and guess who invented this? Reinvented it, it turns out, at Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York City. Colley did. And The minute it was mentioned, not the minute, within about a week, if you want to be picky, the first time in press, and you will receive a copy of this, it's this one right here, in your paper, Science News, March the 30th, 1991, page 270, had a little article that an absolute cure for AIDS had been invented, and it was electrotherapy. And then this information disappeared. We're looking at page 2 on our paper. It went underground. And after a vast computer search, a second time, it was reprinted in the Houston Post on Wednesday, March 20th, 1991, in Your Health and Medicine, on the science page, that a cure had been invented, and this was electricity. And the last time that this was ever mentioned in the American politically correct press, it was in Longevity magazine, December 1992, page 14, where the inventor of the process, now having been paid off and suppressed, says, well, it's a great idea, but it will be 15 years. This is up in about 2012, before it will be ready for human use. Now, why do you think it is that the Food and Drug Administration, our enforcement arm for the pharmaceutical houses, will never let you have this, never approve it, never let a doctor use it? Because it devastates the incomes of the doctors, the clinics. Think of the billions of dollars that are in diagnostic equipment for cancer, like CAT scanners, MRIs, magnetic resonance imaging, diagnostic X-ray, radiation treatment. Billions of dollars are invested in this, when for the price of a pack of chewing gum, you can wipe out this and cancer, and the person can cure himself by never, ever going to a doctor, a nurse, a homeopath, an herbalist. They don't want this information out there. It will be devastating. And why are you slaves to the medical model? You've been taught all your life, when you're sick, go see the doctor. Your mothers believe this. Going to the doctor is a ritual that they believe in. And why are we so brainwashed against this? Let me give you a little slice of history that'll make being at this conference worthwhile tonight. Around 1900, John D. Rockefeller himself, who owned a lot of oil producing facilities, bought interest in pharmaceutical houses. He realized, because the patents on this process go back 107 years, and we have the numbers printed in your paper, you can look it up and see for yourself, realized that if electromedicine were to survive, his pharmaceutical investments would be worth only a fraction of what he'd paid for them. So he sent a man with a lot of congressional clout and a lot of money named Andrew Flexner, F-L-E-X-N-E-R, and in 1910, the Flexner Report was published in the United States that forbade any medical college, Harvard, University of Southern California, all the big ones, from using electromedicine in their teaching. If they did, they would be disaccredited, could no longer license doctors to practice. And what an insidious, dirty, brilliant way this was to suppress the real cure for disease and sell you pills. A friend of mine who had a little physical infection the other day went to the drugstore, bought a bottle of pharmaceuticals. There were about 30 pills in the bottle, They were $3 or $4 each. They cost the pharmaceutical house 12 cents each to make, but he paid $3 or $4, I don't recall which. And he controlled that one infection. Did you know, and you probably don't, that penicillin, Arthur Fleming was given the Nobel Prize and knighted for this, was invented in 1882 in South America. The means of making penicillin and using it appeared in the South American medical journals in 1883, and yet he was knighted because there was an accident at Pensacola at the Naval Hospital in the early 1940s where the Navy actually tested penicillin and found that it cured syphilis and gonorrhea. But penicillin only cures 8 diseases. Look in your Merrick manual, look in your clinical encyclopedia, look in your medical literature. Those 8 diseases used to be, including staph and strep, gonorrhea, syphilis, and 4 others. Today, biological strains of these diseases have become penicillin resistant. And if you have many diseases, there is no antibiotic known, but there is no strain known to date. Do you know of any?
I do not know of any.
Which is resistant to electricity in your blood. It's that simple. Now I'm here putting my buns on the line, although they've come to my door, the FDA, at 3 in the morning with drawn guns, to tell you that this exists. Everything I know about this, you don't need me, you don't need a workshop, you don't need a lecture, is put in this paper, which grows by a few pages every few months. And Judith has these in the back row, and we're charging $5 for them. This is the only thing I make on this. I have no interest whatever in Russ's company. He's here because he makes an ethical product, because I endorse it. There's another ethical product being made in Colorado, but they're not here this week, which is probably my fault. But if you want to cure any disease that's likely to happen, including the dozens of diseases for which there is no known medical cure, see Russ, or somebody, see Russ in booth 45. It's in the room off the side, and he'll show you. I think you're sold out now. You haven't got anything to...
I got nothing to strap up, so I think there's...
He sold out. This is amazing how many people, or intelligent people, want to cure themselves in spite of the fact that 85% of you have a death wish and don't want to see anything like this in use. Have your neighbors get it. These people want to die. And I've talked with my dear friend Sam about this on a few occasions, and he has a spiritual approach to reconnecting them with God so they won't, in their death wish, model, I have been born under original sin, I was cast out of the Garden of Eden, there were cherubim with fiery spears to keep me from coming back. Satan, the devil, is in control of this dispensation. It says so in the Bible. If I get better, I'm not going to get sympathy and free basket weaving classes, and the food truck isn't coming around. And here's Charlie, a 55-year-old engineer, who's come home with cancer to die. What happened here? My God, his wife is bringing him chicken soup in bed. His grown kids are being polite to him for the first time in a long time. If Charlie gets rid of his cancer and lives and goes back to work, what happens? He's competing with the younger engineers that just got out of college recently. He's going to be fired in a couple of years before his retirement comes into effect, which is what most of the companies are doing. There are a lot of very good reasons why people have a death wish, and I've dealt with hundreds of these. In the 1960s and 1963, I brought out into this country illegally the Lakowski multiple wave oscillator, MWO. Ed Skilling. Ed, are you here tonight? As one of our friends made some of these. They cured a lot of people. We cured a bunch of people at UCLA Medical who were sent, over 18 of them. The California law permits me to treat people who are certified as dying. I can't treat the ones that, you know, are going to die anyway, just the ones given up for dead. Of those 18, we cured 12. Within 1.5 years, 6 of them had committed suicide. Their death wishes, when they got rid of their cancers, had clean biopsies, said, well, in the case of Bill Murphy, Murphy Oldsmobile, everybody knows about his Rockets of Stardom show, drove onto the Hollywood freeway on the Normandy on-ramp, ran into a carload of people head-on at full speed, killed not only himself, which is what unconsciously he was trying to do, but 4 other people in the other car, and that was on my karma. So right now, we begin asking them questions before we'll even treat them. What could you be getting out of having cancer? Oh, nothing. I want to get well. Lie. What could your friend George next door be getting out of having cancer? Oh, well, he's getting welfare and health benefits, and people are being polite to him, and he's getting sympathy, and he doesn't have to go to work. In other words, somewhere on the scale between me and them, he will locate himself precisely on his death wish quotient, if you can call it that. Do you call this anything, Sam, or just call it a death wish?
Just a death wish.
Just a death wish, right. So our problem is not in curing people. We've done that, been there, done that. The problem is convincing them that they want to get well. And I don't know how to handle that, but I'll tell you about some of the other problems. When we began doing this, I was all enthusiastic and bushy-tailed. I had seen this little article because I was listening to radio station KPFK, public radio in Los Angeles, one night when the Wizards, they have free programming, they take no advertising, mentioned that there was an article in Science News that says there was now a cure for all diseases. I got white hot on this. I pulled on my clothes, ran to the nearest several libraries, and the article was missing. So I bribed a librarian to find me their backup copy. Librarians aren't supposed to take bribes from the public, but I got my hands on it. So I started sending to Albert Einstein College for information. It says right here that a paper was presented that spring in Washington, D.C. at the joint conferences on combination therapies. I had to get my hands on that paper. But to talk to the guys who authored the paper, it didn't exist. It had been cut with razor blades out of the journals, the proceedings. What the hell is this in a free country? Why is this information being suppressed? It must be important. Who's doing it? The people that are making money off of other people's suffering, namely the pharmaceutical houses, the medical doctors, the establishment. Why is it that they know, although they won't talk to you about it, doctors know that a medical patient cured is a customer lost? They'd rather treat you. They'd rather you come back on a week-to-week basis, not cure you. If they cure you, they'll never see you again. What will happen to their wife's third Cadillac and mink coat and their yacht? That's not good. They won't talk about this. But I'm here tonight to give you one message, and here it is. 4 words. You ready? Take back your power. Quit being enslaved to the medical, pharmaceutical, drug dealers legal drugs in this case, although the mafia owns quite a bit of the pharmaceutical industry. They get your money on both ends, cocaine from Bolivia, pharmaceuticals from, well, I won't mention the companies because they'll sue me for slander. I've decided to be nice to everybody tonight instead of calling some of these products the way I see them. But it's here now. The process is simple. It's affordable. You don't have to buy anything. You can build your own devices. Originally, we preferred that people did that. And here's the unit I designed in 1991 on page 3 of your papers. And I see Mark twisting the lens on the television. We must be getting a close-up. And on the back side of this circuit diagram, which 10-year-old kids have built, by the way, is a parts list that if you don't understand what this means, if you're totally electronically impaired or too damn stupid or lazy to build your own, you take and you put on the counter at Radio Shack, oh, is this a resistor? And it's 15 cents? Wow. And this is a relay, and this is a 100K pot. They'll give you all the stuff you need if you go first class for $49.24. If you cheapen it, use the cheaper version, you can build your own blood cleaner for $30. I think it's up to about $35 in 1998. And this will save you $375,000 if you have cancer, if your wife has breast cancer, if your best friend is dying. But don't do it. A better schematic, and one that's slightly more difficult to build, was disclosed by Mike Seiler, who makes an interesting ethical unit. And this diagram is on the second page 10. We stopped in the middle and started over. It gives you a circuit of a single chip model, no relays. It uses 1 or 2 or 3 batteries, depending on the model you build. Russ's device uses a single 9-volt battery, so it's lighter and smarter and more efficient than the old number 1 that I built 7 years ago that uses 7 batteries. And the reason he's here is he's building probably the best unit in the world. There are about 20-some people building these devices now. Most of them have never shown them to me. Some of them have gotten their schematic out of an amateur radio journal and use optical couplers instead of transistors, and I don't recommend it, but I do recommend Mike's, and I hope you saved one of them in booth 45 to show if they come down there.
Pulling out of the woodwork.
Yeah, he's found one that you people had better see about, because it'll be the greatest gift you'd ever had for your friends and family and yourselves, because it does cure anything. And there's a clear and present danger today, and how many of you saw the morning paper where Larry Harris was being taken away in chains? You seen this? Get yourself a copy of USA Today in the drugstore tonight in the local papers. All over America have been pictures of this good guy who was a microbiologist for the Central Intelligence Agency who found what was planned for us by Iran, Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein is using biological cultures, smuggling them into the United States in women's vaginas to keep the culture at about 35 degrees centigrade so that they'll live. This is the incubation rate. These cultures, if they get through the airport, and the FBA has found 126 women so far carrying these cultures in their body cavities. These cultures are going to colonies of Iran Husseins in this country, fraternities, colleges, little communities, and being cultured in thermos bottles. And when Saddam Hussein decides to drop these on America, if we can't stop him first, you will see epidemics that will be like nothing that's been shown in recorded history. In 1918, 60 million not 20 that you read, 60 million people died with swine flu. Their bodies were piled up in refrigerators till they could take them out and put them in mass graves. If you've heard Larry Harris's excellent tape, pardon me, he is giving you a fair idea of what is going to happen to you very soon. We thought it would happen during Ramadan a couple of months ago in the United States, when these bacteriological weapons, and Saddam Hussein has chosen bubonic plague, botulism, and anthrax to make his attack. He's told his people in this country how to steal airplanes, paste ferrite tape on them so they will not reflect radar like our stealth bombers, put sprayers, Venturis, on the side of the plane and spray over major cities. 9/10 of you will die. You've noticed that the price of ampicillin, one of the few antibiotics that will handle botulism, bubonic plague, and anthrax, have gone up many hundreds of percent lately, and you can't get it. Why? Because people who know about this are stocking up. And you're wondering why Clinton is thinking about warfare. He's trying to save 90% of your lives, but he can't tell you because this will wreck the stock market. People will panic. The only thing I know of which will protect you from all of these emerging viruses, and Larry Harris has sent us reports, Russ and myself directly, saying he has tested these 4 items, and we'll describe all 4 of them in a minute. That is one of the very, very few things known to science and the CIA and Litton Bionetics and all these companies that will kill these viruses and save your life when your neighbors are dropping like flies. And this is perfectly okay because the New World Order is trying to reduce our population by a given percentage. This is bad news, but it's true. This is not conspiracy theory. It's not far-right theory. It is proven and true. In fact, a hospital that I work with in Shreveport, Louisiana, the director was an ex-CIA agent. He's now a billionaire because he owns the HMOs, health management organizations in the Southwest, was called back because he was an ex-CIAer to a secret meeting in Arkansas about 7 months ago in which they were warned of this. And he bought a few $1,000s worth of ampicillin, has it in cold storage, and then he found out about this. He doesn't need the ampicillin. He doesn't need the storage, doesn't have to worry about the shelf life. The electrification of the blood, the silver colloids, the magnetic pulsar, which Russ will demonstrate in a few minutes, and the ozone will take care of your body with hundreds and hundreds of diseases. In the case of silver colloids, 650. And do you know what silver colloids will cost you? 1/10 of a penny per gallon. And silver colloids have been known for nearly 100 years to be as specific for 650 different diseases to which mankind is prone. But why don't you find it except in multi-level places for $10 to $20 an ounce? There's no money in it. The pharmaceutical houses cannot patent it. You can make your own for 1/10 of a penny a gallon, and let's do that. Shall we do that right now? And then Russ will demonstrate the third thing. How many of you have not seen silver colloid made? Okay, this is about not quite a third of the audience. Russ, do you want to hand me a glass of water there? And is what I've got here is a glass of Florida tap water. We have a little laser light. I will not let this hit your eyes. We're going to shine the laser light through the glass of water And I want you to look at the water between the two edges of the glass. And it's fairly clear. There's a little dirt floating around in here, but not much. This is fairly pure water. Now let's take a little device that you can build for a few dollars, but is always included with the blood cleaners, which all of the manufacturers that we approve of make. There's one plug on the blood cleaner for the blood electrification electrodes. That's a 3.5 mil, if you're an engineer, male phone jack and plug. The other plug on this box is the half, 1/8 inch jack, so you cannot get the wrong plug and the wrong jack. It just won't fit. And into there is plugged two solid silver wires. Do not get your silver at a jewelry store. They don't sell silver. They sell sterling silver. And sterling silver has 18% nickel in it, which makes it harder and more easy to work with. So what we have here, and what comes with your blood cleaners and silver zappers and colloid makers, are two silver wires, which we put in this glass of clear water. And we plug it into the unit, and all of the units, Russ's, Mike's, mine, which I build for my friends, give to them for free, have little light bulbs, incandescent bulbs, which are in series with the colloid electrodes and the battery, to show you that this water is fairly low resistance. And if you look at this very carefully, maybe you can see it in the front row, you see a little cloud forming in the water. You can see it on this side of the light easily, probably not on that side. I'll show it to you with the laser in a minute. This cloud has been repeatedly measured by university laboratories as being at 0.001 micron, billionths of an inch, particle size of pure ionic silver colloid. And what are we doing to this free water? We're making about $20 worth of the most powerful medicine known to science in handling secondary emissions, and it's costing us, this is about 1/100th of a penny, plus the cost of the water. The ironic thing is that a gallon of good drinking water in Ralph's grocery store now costs more than a gallon of gasoline at the filling station. And when you were little kids, when I was a kid, gasoline was 10 cents a gallon, 10 gallons for $1. Remember that? Hey, you're not that old. Yeah, well, you remember when it may have gone up to 20 in the 40s. But now water is more expensive than gasoline. And it's interesting to note that a gallon of distilled water, Arrowhead or Sparklets, in Los Angeles is 80 cents. And that water is 800 times more expensive than the colloids you can make, which is the most effective medicine. And guess why the pharmaceutical houses won't tell you this? Because it's free. You can make your own. You don't have to buy it. You make it fresh. Do what you're going to do and then throw it away. Why store it? We used to store it in dark bottles. And I would save my friends Bailey's Irish Cream bottles and Kahlua. They were dark brown. And people, I'm sure, when I downloaded these bottles, thought that I was a drunk. But you have to store colloids out of the light in brown or red bottles. Light will ruin it because silver is the constituent of silver halide, which is used in camera films. When the light hits it, it destroys the effectiveness of the colloid, turns it black. That's how a camera negative works. When light hits the negative, it turns the parts that are developable black. Now, how long have we been in here, Russ?
A good 3 minutes.
There's about 3 minutes. Now, Nothing up my sleeves. You saw this water about 3 minutes ago. Now I want you to look at it. Still have battery problems with these things. There. Okay, look at this. First for the television camera. You notice, can you see from there that we have a kind of a solid red beam going across from side to side of the glass through the water? I won't let this hit your eyes. It's dangerous if it hits your eyes, not if you look at it like this. See that? To your health.
How many parts per million?
That was about 3 parts per million. An 8-ounce glass of ambient temperature water, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, left for 3 minutes gives you 3 parts per million. If you see on certain bottles on the floor down the hall, this is 50 parts per million, 100, don't believe it. We've analyzed dozens of colloids. I have the certified laboratory files at home in California. Make your own. Take back your power. Don't buy anything that's kind of stupid. Now, we'll let Russ tell you about the magnetic pulsar. By putting the blood electrification into the ulnar and radial arteries on your wrist, you've gotten rid of all, and I'll read it to you in a minute from the government documents, parasites, pathogens, germs, bacteria, viruses in the blood. But what about those that are being taken up by your lymph system, your lymph nodes, your liver, your spleen, your adenoids? When you do a biopsy by taking samples of these tissues out of your body, you'll find, in the case of AIDS and a number of other diseases, that they're still in there. They're germinating. They've shut down the outer protein production, and the nucleus, RNA, DNA, which replicates itself in your human white cells, CD4, are still there. And 3 to 5 years from now, you may reinfect yourself. Now, if we're going to cure somebody, we got to get rid of all this garbage in your system, all these aliens, all these invaders. How do you do it? Well, one way is to put thousands of needles, 2 at a time, into various lymph sites, which are fully delineated in my paper, and we stole liberally here from Gray's Anatomy. On page 8 of the first section, these were taken out of Gray's Anatomy, which is the most authoritative work on this. You hold this coil, which Russ has on the table, and tell us about that, Russ.
Alrighty, I probably should grab this for the
Yeah, good.
people here. I'll talk a little bit about magnetic pulse generator. This coil, in this demonstration version, it's open coil, so I can put objects inside of it. On our finished version that you may see at our booth, it's all enclosed for safety's sake. It's important to have it fully enclosed because of the very high voltages that are created. And also, we don't want projectiles flying into people's eyes. So we totally enclose it in epoxy and double insulate it. We'll talk a little bit about what this unit's going to do. Bob mentioned that in order to get in the microelectric currents that is described in that patent in other areas of the body, namely the lymph system and non-blood fluids in the body, the 50 to 100 microamperes, as Bob was saying, you have to put thousands of needles in all over. It's obviously very impractical and probably hurt quite a bit. So Bob came up with a very unique way of doing this, and that is producing a very intense time-variant magnetic field. It is not like permanent magnets. Time-variant means that with time, the field actually moves and changes. Same principle on how an alternator or generator in your car works. It has to be spinning in order to create voltage. In this case, what this device will do is put in a very intense magnetic field into this coil for 2.5 milliseconds, 0.0025 seconds. And what's going to happen, the unit itself is going to charge up 600, this is for, may get a little technical, but for some of the engineers in here, you'll understand more what this is. And it is fully covered in Bob's lecture handout. We're going to charge a 600 microfarad capacitor in the unit to approximately between 330 and 350 volts. You're going to push the button. Now all that stored energy, which is in the neighborhood of about 36 to 37 watt seconds or 36 joules, which is just another form of a way to say energy. That energy is going to be sent down this wire and it's going to be concentrated into this coil. It translates out to about 32,000 watts of energy in one instant. And what happens when that occurs? I'll demonstrate magnetic field because we can't feel, see, or hear in a magnetic field. It's completely, does not interact with the body.
I like the word occult.
It's a cult.
It's a hidden field. Occult had nothing to do with witchcraft, metaphysics, until a few years ago. And occult simply means hidden, like occluded blood in your urine or what have you.
Exactly.
So we're going to make an occult field here, and God help us if we don't. You can't hear it, feel it, taste it, smell it, but he's going to show you it's really there.
Yes. And when this intense field is passed over a conductor, in this case the saline in your body, which is in the blood and all other systems, we are salty creatures, and the salt conducts electricity, this moving magnetic field will induce those voltages and currents required to do the electrification within the tissues. And hence the reason for using this, which can be put in on the lymph nodes and other target areas. So we'll do a demonstration. Turn the unit on. I've got a 3/8" truck washer, fairly heavy little washer, tied onto this tassel for visual effect. You might want to zoom out on the camera because we'll see what happens here. Going to place it inside the coil here, pulse it, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, I think it did. It's right over here.
For the people listening to the audio section, that went about 6 feet away and maybe 8 feet in the air.
Yeah, let's see if we can direct this into the audience. It's.
You don't want to do that.
Oh, we don't want to do that, do we? There it goes again. So that's a good, good
Do it
10
one
feet.
more time.
One more time.
Child's toy.
As you can see, you can take a very small object like a washer and project it an incredible amount of distance, and yet you won't feel, oh, there we go. You won't feel anything. And how the unit is operated, if I get this little mic working, it's still on, and
That's probably
Click.
a condenser mic.
yeah, that one won't work.
Yeah.
Usually the dynamic microphones would have a coil inside, will thump. At the other lecture, I could initiate a thump from the to the microphone at least 5 or 6 inches away, indicating the strength of the magnetic field. And you pulse this, you can hear a little click, only because the coil is compressing very, very rapidly. You won't hear this in the commercial unit. And you'll pulse all your lymph nodes, as shown on the diagrams. And that's how the magnetic pulsar works.
Thank you, Russ.
You're welcome, Bob. Let me strap you back
For your
up here.
sake, Sam, the mechanism is called back EMF. EMF for electromagnetic field. And when you have a time-varying magnet, that means you're cutting the lines of flux with the lymph tissue, the adenoids, the liver, the spleen. You generate a voltage in there, and the voltage is quite sufficient to immobilize, neutralize all the viruses that are left over that your own garbage system, namely your lymph fluid, is handling. You know that you have about 8 pints of blood if you're a healthy adult. You've got 5 times that, or 40 pints of lymph fluid in your body. So God may have made the garbage collectors more important than the actual blood for disposing of the toxins, which we'll get back to in a minute. So thank you. Let's hear it for the flying washer. The magnetic field is the second thing which we have found essential for curing you and keeping you cured the rest of your life and making you happy and healthy and horny and all the good stuff. The third thing, nobody has ever died of AIDS. They've died of the secondary infections which their shot immune systems have been unable to handle. If you look, what does AIDS stand for? Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome, AIDS, Acquired Immunity Deficient System, Immune Deficient, well, anyway. Now, some of these people, and we worked with a number of them that were so sick that it took 2 attendants to lift them from their deathbed to the potty and back when they were done. They couldn't walk that far. Had immune systems that were so shot that when they got one of the 23 associated diseases, including pneumonia, Kaposi's sarcoma, etc., those things would kill them, where normally your immune system would handle them in a day and you'd never even know you had them. How do you get rid of the secondary infections without breaking somebody for $5,760 a year, up to $20,000 a year if you're playing the game, if you're enslaved to the pharmaceutical houses for chemotherapy agents, which were so toxic, like AZT, that the FDA would not allow them to be used in the first years on cancer. Did you know that? Poison your system. How do we give them back to themselves? Silver colloids. 1/10 of a penny a gallon. We included the colloid maker with all of the, some people call them silver zappers, tea zappers, what have you. But if the dying AIDS patient, you probably won't need this, but it's going to make you a hell of a lot better in spite of yourselves. The silver colloids, if you take them freshly made, we just found this out in the last few months. Normally you buy a bottle of colloids and it's supposed to last for 2 or 3 years. It does. If you send the colloid to a professional laboratory that deals with photochemicals, photographers can't pour their hypo down the drain because it has dissolved silver in it. They electrolytically take it out in other ways. They'll tell you, this bottle you bought in 1995 still has silver colloid in it, but the silver colloid isn't working because the electrostatic charge on the outside of it has been shorted by the conductivity of the water. So don't tell these people that sold you a bottle of colloid last year that their stuff is no good. It's got colloid in it, but it don't make you better. Make it up. This took 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever you want. Drink it, bathe in it, wash your diapers in it, spray your hair with it so you're killing the fungus that lives on the follicles, the roots of the hair, and you get a good thick head of hair back. I can't go to a conference without 1 or 2 wise people coming up and pulling my hair. I just lost a $50 bet. We thought that was a wig, Bob. We knew you when you were bald. Funny as hell, but I grew it back. Not everybody, but about 10% of the people who use this, they get so healthy that their hair grows back. You know why they lose weight, or why I think they do. This is a theory, not a statement of fact. But keeping these people alive means making a very powerful medicine, which we do, and that's in your paper. We have quite a few pages in there telling you how you make colloid, how you put a little bit on your plants, destroy the fungus that's killing the roots. We have palm trees that are dying of fungus in San Juan Capistrano in California. All they had to do was get one of these pump-up units that'll spray colloid to the top of the palm tree, save these $2,000 to $5,000 palms that have been planted on the streets down there cosmetically. When you feed colloid to your cats, you heard me this morning, the cats got healthy. Carla, who works at Denny's, was raising thoroughbred cats, Persian cats. She was spending most of her salary on veterinarians. One day she told me about her favorite cat being at the vet again. So she brought one of these plastic coffee cups. I had my colloid maker with me, I carry it. Made her colloid, took it home, fed it to her cat, I came back to Denny's on Harbor in about a week. How's your cat? Bob, what have you done to my cat? And I thought, oh God, here I go practicing medicine again, I'm in trouble. She said, my cat is running around, jumping up on the furniture, and it hasn't done this for years. She said, but a terrible thing has happened. You got to make me some more colloid. The cat won't drink the bottled water I'd been giving it unless I put colloid in it. It turns up its nose and its tail and walks away. That cat knows something, kids, and that is that whatever is in that colloid, the cat intuitively knows is healing it, making it younger, better, friskier. And that was one of those serendipities, one of these things I would have never have suspected when we began. Now, we've talked about the blood cleaner. We've talked about the magnetic pulsar, which takes care of the latent and germinating diseases, viruses, microbes, parasites that are in your body. It easily generates close to the surface 1 milliampere, 1,000th of an ampere. By the time it's gotten to about 8 inches, the magnetic force falls over H as 1 to the cube of the distance. Light, electromagnetic energy falls off as the square of the distance. So about 8 inches into your body, this begins deteriorating. At that level, you're getting a measurable, if you put stainless steel insulated hypodermic needles into your body and flash it, you're getting 50 to 100 microamps, which is what you're getting through your blood if you access the arteries. And why do you access the arteries? Because they are close to the skin at these points and avoiding all of the bones in your wrist, and where you can feel the pulse, the arterial blood is flowing, not venous, arterial. And when you put the electrodes directly on those spots where you can feel the pulse, the maximum amount of this current is getting into the blood, not into the surrounding tissue, which is wasted, which is why some of these zappers that you hold in your hands do not work, although some people believe in them, like shamanism and placebos, but I don't want to go into that. This works. This works every time. 21-week-old babies who've had AIDS have been cured. Russ called me a few months back with a testimonial. They had adopted this baby. It wasn't getting better, wasn't eating, wasn't crawling, and it was diagnosed as an AIDS baby. Got the AIDS from the parents at birth. And what was that, 21 weeks or 21 months?
I think it's 21 months.
21 months,
Very
I'm
young,
sorry.
Infant.
Baby got well, and a mystery thing happened. The mother didn't want to disturb the baby and turned the power on this device way, way down, and the baby still got well. We were putting less, in my opinion, than 50 to 100 microamps into the blood, and what little current was going into the blood, it cured this baby, and this is a medically documented. Records exist. This isn't apocrypha. This isn't multi-level. I resolve not to use the word bullshit today, but I'm not doing too well with that. The people who've gotten well with this just go across the entire spectrum of lupus, Epstein-Barr, chronic fatigue syndrome, hepatitis A, B, C. I can't tell you how many cures, and there I go committing a felony again, how many spontaneous remissions are documented. And we'll show you this as the end of the line. Now, problem, as Eleanor Roosevelt would have said, we have a problem. When we cured them too fast, which we thought was a good thing to do, some of them got terribly sick in their own waste products. Let's presume that you have a few billion or a few trillion HIV viruses floating around in your blood. When these can no longer attach, when the reverse transcriptase layer of protein is neutralized by the electricity, which it is, they float around, some of them die. Where are they going? Your body's garbage collection system, your lymph, other things, have to handle this and get it out of your body. We were sorely reminded that the skin is the largest organ of elimination you have. After that comes the kidneys, the bladder, the colon. How are we going to get this person well in a short period of time instead of several months and detoxify him so he isn't going to die of Herxheimer's syndrome, which means dying in your own waste products? And I noticed the one at the very top here just happens to be this way the last time I looked through these papers. Rufus, who started life with 412,475 RNA by PCR AIDS HIV particles per milliliter per cubic centimeter. He called me one day. He was hysterical as anyone, male or female, you've ever met in your life. Bob, one of these soft spots under my scalp has burst and there's yellow-green pus running down my face. What shall I do? I said, Rufus, calm down a minute and listen. That yellow-green pus is dead traumatic cells that have been in your body for several years now since you had been diagnosed by all your doctors with AIDS. Isn't it better to have that stuff outside of your body than inside? Oh, I said, you're detoxing. So he went to the bathroom, got a white towel, wrapped it around his head like a turban, and was perfectly happy to go back on the blood cleansing. Today, this was in 1995, of course. This was January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August 1995. Today he's back at work, symptom-free, has no HIV in his blood. But he was one of the first people who got really scared, really sick, really hysterical about detoxifying. We called him Vesuvio because he was like a volcano with yellow-green stuff running down his face. Now, that no longer happens. We set up this protocol in 1994, 1995 to take 21 days, 3 weeks, to get all of the viruses out of the person's system, and I'm going to blow your mind in about 45 seconds here and read something to you that you can get, put on your coffee table, and win a $50 bet from all of your smart head friends that come into your house. Today, a clinic opening in Costa Rica shortly is going to guarantee in writing a cure for advanced AIDS in 4 days. Because we've learned how, and I'll show you how, and we'll demonstrate it right here at this table tonight, how to detoxify people without having them go through these weeks of skin eruptions, boils, carbuncles, flu syndromes, temperature, nausea, all detoxification symptoms. And that's to use ozone, the gas. Now, before I start out, let me warn you that ozone is illegal in this country. That Phil, who imports the Sander, S-A-N-D-E-R unit, which you'll find in tropical fish stores, has to sign agreements with the factory that builds these things in Germany that they will not be sold for human use. So when you go into a tropical fish supply store, an aquarium supply, if they're playing the game ethically, they'll ask you, well, what are you going to do with it? Oh, this is for my fish in the aquarium. Then they may begrudgingly sell you one. But if you say, I'm going to use it on my horses, cats, cattle, self, FDA won't let you do that. While this has been used for, some people claim, up to half a century in Germany, as the first line of disease control with 7,000 medical doctors, you haven't heard anything about it in this country. Why? It cuts into the doctor's income. It decimates the money that you slaves have been giving to the pharmaceutical houses since 1910, when the Flexner report offered to decertify doctors who used electromedicine. But what happened? A few years ago, Niels Bjordenstrom from Sweden, the radiologist who was curing breast cancer with 2 little needles and a 9-volt power supply. How many have heard about Nordenstrom's? Good. He was big in this country. He was hosted by the Archaea Society, the World Research. Suddenly he forgot how to speak English when I stood up and said, Dr. Nordenstrom, don't you realize that when you put a positively charged electrode needle and a negatively charged into a human breast cancer, that you're causing electrolysis and that oxygen comes off of one electrode and hydrogen off of the other? And what do you think is curing these women? Why are you getting international publicity? Large magazine articles on your discovery. Don't you know that this was a standard treatment for breast cancer in 1905? I've got the textbooks. I have a collection of old medical electronic textbooks where all of this has been done since 107 years ago, and your doctor hasn't told you one goddamn thing about it. You're enslaved to giving him your money. That's my opinion. Sue me. Well, in Germany, they know that ozone, O3, nascent oxygen, is the most powerful detoxification system known to man. And that when you put ozone in water and drink it, you're going to get well, because 99% of the germs, pathogens, bacteria that are known are anaerobic. They can only live where there isn't any oxygen. And Warburg in 1931, Otto Warburg, got the Nobel Prize for telling people that cancer can easily be controlled by simply oxygenating the cancer, which will revert back to its oxygen metabolism instead of fermentation based on alcohols and sugars that are broken down from the nutrients in your blood. All of this has been done before. And when in 1990 and 91 and 92, I gave Albert Einstein College full credit for inventing this most remarkable breakthrough in medicine known in centuries, I did a thing which I normally do, having been an old engineer, and did a patent search. We found dozens and dozens of patents, and their numbers are written down in the paper that you'll get from my darling Judith in the back row. Now let me read you something, which I promised to do, that'll make true believers out of all of you. The people who reinvented in 1990, March of 1990, this electrification of the blood, filed a patent. That patent was granted February 23rd, 1993. The patent number is 5188738. It shows a list of prior state-of-the-art, that's called citations, C-I-T-A-T-I-O-N-S, in the Patent Office, of things going back here to 1897, etc. But that's nothing. What it did, how in the world will the medical profession maintain control of something this simple, this obvious, this cheap, this perfect, this infallible as a cure-all? So figure 1 in this patent, Mark, if you want to zoom in on this, we might be able to see it, shows a little plastic tube about 14 inches long that has a hypodermic needle on each end of the tube. One of the hypodermic needles goes into your ulnar brachial artery, right here. The other one can go into your other arm or into an empty bottle. This autodialysis process takes the blood out of one arm, runs it down this plastic tube, past a couple of little electrodes, 2 centimeters apart. That's less than 1 inch. 2.5 centimeters is 1 inch. That is electrified with a battery, and then it goes into the other arm of the battery. Now, what do you have in the electricity? Maybe 1.5 or 2 cubic centimeters of blood. How long is it going to take you sitting in an easy chair, like in chelation? How long will it take you to have 8 pints of your blood run past those 2 little electrodes? Quite a few hours, at about $100 an hour. And if you don't want to go that route, let's look into this U.S. patent number 5188738, a couple of pages downstream. And here we have another picture of the human forearm. This isn't in your paper, by the way, but the patent numbers are. And here's an enlarged drawing of a blood vessel, the brachial, upper ulnar, that has a little implant in it that's about 3/4 to 1 inch long, of a titanium or stainless steel chamber through which the blood flows. In the center of this chamber is a little battery like in your electric wristwatch that runs down in about a month. This is planted surgically. They cut through the flesh on your arm, open it up, cut into the artery, open it up, sew this little electrode system into the arm, and leave it there for about a month till the battery runs down. The battery's DC, it causes electrolysis and other very bad things to happen in the blood. You go into the hospital again, they cut your arm open, they cut the vein open, artery open. They take this out, they change the battery, and they'll put it in the other arm. Or they'll put it in the leg. They put it in the arteries in your legs until they've worn out the sites where they put it. And what will this cost you? $50,000 to $100,000 to cure you of any known disease. And what should it cost you? $1.32 without putting anything into your body, without putting a needle into you, without taking the blood out of your body in vitro, treating yourselves in vivo, outside of the body where it belongs. And instead of a 1.5 cubic centimeters of blood, we have 30 to 60, depending on man, woman, or child. We're treating at any second as these 8 pints of blood goes through your body. Takes about 10 minutes for all of that blood to pass any point where you can feel your arterial blood, where you can feel your pulse or the blood flow. And this is so much better, so much faster, so much cleaner, so much more certain than the medical doctors who got this patent. But let me read you something. If you do not believe this, once again, we're reading from patent number 5188738. And if we turn to the first part of the disclosure before we get to the claims, and this is true, you can see it with your own eyes, I didn't make it up. This is a U.S. government document which you can get faxed to you for a couple of bucks or get a copy of from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Patent Department. What do they say about this? Because of this problem, the present invention has been devised to attenuate any bacteria virus, including the AIDS, HIV virus, parasites, and or fungus contained in blood, either contributed by a donor to the point where the blood will be used for transfusion, like in hemophiliacs, AIDS babies, etc. And any such contaminant is rendered ineffective for infecting a normally healthy human cell. Now, how many of you have read 100,000 times, like I have, there is no known cure for AIDS? Newspapers, magazines, every week, HIV, which is presumed the cause of AIDS, we're still looking for a cure. We're holding hope out for these 40,000 sufferers who are still alive in the United States, and maybe 200,000 who've died in the meantime in Africa, Haiti. And here in column 2, line 10, again they mention, to the extent that bacteria, virus, fungus, and or parasites contained in the blood or other bodily fluids are rendered ineffective to infect and or affect normally healthy human cells. Well, damn, children, don't you think you'd better be told this? Why haven't your doctors told you that there's a cure for everything? It's going to cost them. We go on to column 7, which they get down just before the claims here. You can get this. You can copy this one if you want. I'll be around all weekend. The magnitude of the biological compatible current flow, for example, treatment of virus in media at 100 microamperes for 3 minutes, has been observed to substantially attenuate, render ineffective, the AIDS virus, period. Similar treatment at other field strength values and lengths of time will have a similar attenuating effect on bacteria, virus, parasites, and or fungus, which are present in blood or other body fluids, and they go on to tell you how many minutes and how much current it will take to cure you of anything known to science, including Ebola, which is not mentioned here, bacteriological warfare agents, which are not mentioned here but are mentioned in Larry Harris's, who was taken away in chains this morning. And doesn't it kind of bother you that your doctors have never told you about this? And I, at one time, thought that Einstein College had invented the ultimate cure for all diseases. But wait a minute. A cursory patent search using the citations which were published in the front of the patent, if you should choose to pick this up. These citations right here revealed R.R. Myers' patent, August 21st, 1973, number 3753886. What do we have here? Doesn't this little device look exactly like the one that's drawn in the patent from February 1993? And what does this device do? It kills all bacteria, pathogens, germs, fungi, yeast, and parasites in water that's being discharged by a hospital or a factory back into our lakes and streams. Now, wait a minute. A patent in 1973 has been in public domain since the 1980s. You don't have to pay royalties to anyone. You don't have to get a license from them to use this. Let's keep looking. We're on an Easter egg hunt here. We have here patent number 4524079, which shows a coil, like the one you just saw, kicking a washer, and some diseased tissue in that coil. It's a very poor artist rendition of this process. And I'm holding this up a little longer than necessary so Mark can get this. And to the same guy, May 19th, 1987, 4665898, Costa shows a coil, and that's supposed to be the picture of a rat in the coil. That's the best the artist could do. Cures all cancer. And how did he get this patent past the patent office? Here's an enlarged drawing of a capacitor, which Russ has. The wires leading to the coil, and the coil and the rat in the center of the coil, and hundreds of rats, specially raised for cancer. Some of these rats had tumors so large on their stomachs that they couldn't walk. Their feet wouldn't reach the bottom of the cage. Cured. 100%. May 19th, 1987. And they snuck one in on us. Watch this very carefully. Where rats and higher life forms, that's us children, human beings, were cured of cancer on this machine, which put a magnetic pulse of 2 Teslas, 20,000 Gauss, into a coil and put that magnetic field into living animals that were dying of cancer, and they got 100% better. They got well. They lived for the normal lifespan of a rat, a few years. The deeper we looked into this, we found the first patent was 107 years ago, where they were curing all diseases and cancer, and this is in the U.S. Patent Office, with electricity and magnetism. And here comes along Andrew Flexner, financed by Franklin D., John D. Rockefeller, I keep thinking of Roosevelt, which stopped all this and got you and your money enslaved to the pharmaceutical houses. Now, I'm going to say it again. Take back your power. This gives you absolute sovereignty if you choose to do it and don't have a death wish. That's the only condition here. Absolute sovereignty over your own health, the health of your loved ones, the health of your family, the health of the people around you. There are people, I can't mention the city or where, that got an old house trailer in a mobile home park, put some easy reclining chairs in it, this is in California, and did a highly illegal thing. As part of their ministry for the Baptist church that sponsored this, for example, people are invited, people who have incurable diseases and incurable cancer, to come there and sit a couple hours a day for 3 weeks and go home well. And they say God is healing you, which he is, but he's being helped a little bit here by electricity. We're working on a minister of the largest church in Southern California, the Calvary Chapel, who was dying of cancer. He had the prayers day and night of thousands of people in the church. He'd been to all of the best oncologists in Southern California, cancer doctors. He was dying. And a friend of mine took one of these units over there and said, look, let's try, oh no, God will heal him. And he told his wife, well, let's help God a little bit here. Like Mary Glover Patterson Peabody Eddy, the thief of Phineas Quimby's work, who founded Christian Science, said, all is error in divine mind, stay away from doctors. And a wag said, well, Mary Baker Eddy, didn't you say in Science and Health and Key to the Scriptures that God is omnipotent and omnipresent? Yes, I wrote that. She got it directly from Phineas Quimby. Well, Mary Baker Eddy, if God is omnipotent and omnipresent, isn't he in the hands of the healer as well as everywhere else? She thought about it, and he had her nailed to the cross. Yes, God is in the hands of the healer. Why are you so much against doctors? Well, at any rate, when this man was cured, his Christian wife had the audacity to say God did it. And Jean said, well, God instructed us to give him a little help from electricity here, so she shut up. Shut up and drink your beer. You know, your husband's healed. What do you want, a dead husband and martyrdom? Well, anyway, that's another thing. Now,
Dr. Beck, you were going to mention what you're not supposed to do, like you're supposed to stay away from coffee and all
I
those
think we'll
things.
do that in a couple of minutes, but I want to show you one more toy. Ozone, O3. Oh, wonderful, Russ. I fell down, had an accident in September the 20th. I was in the hospital for 2 months with broken bones, femur, hip. And when I got out of the hospital, I found I was having a hard time healing and walking, which is why I'm having a hard time with stairs. So you have to put up with me. This is not an infectious disease. It's the fact that I'm allergic to the titanium plates they put in my bones. We have here a battery-operated ozone generator. I built it. If I put this up by the microphone, the people on the tape can hear the air pump in the ozone generator working. You can probably hear it back there. What this air pump does is, through these little holes on both sides of the ozonizer, suck in quite a few liters of air in an hour. They run this air, which is 19% by volume of oxygen. The rest of your air that you breathe is nitrogen, xenon, krypton, argon, rare gases, carbon dioxide. But the oxygen, the 19% in the air, is turned into nascent oxygen. And that is O3. It is the most active form of oxygen. Ozone is the most active form of oxygen known. German cities are using it to purify their water, ozone, instead of chlorine, so they're not poisoning you and your fish if you have fish tanks. You know you can't put water in them. You have to take the water out of the faucet, boil it, or let it sit for a few days till the chlorine vanishes. But ozone makes them healthy, makes you healthy. These few liters per minute of ozone are going into this fish stone aquarium aerator, which you buy anywhere. Hola, we put this in a glass of water. If this water is chilled, it takes 3 to 4 minutes for that much water. If this water is room temperature, it takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes. If the water is hot, the ozone won't stay in it at all. Don't even try. It makes the second most powerful medicine known that is effective against any anaerobic, that means oxygen avoiding pathogen in your body. In New York City, you can pay $1,500 to $3,000 an hour, which is the standard hospital charge, to place your whole body in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. where you're given a mask which has pure medical oxygen out of a bottle to breathe, and your body is pressurized to 1.5 to sometimes 2 atmospheres, which increases the pressure of all the fluids and tissue in your body. And therefore, under greater pressure, they will absorb more oxygen. I don't have, well, I could scrape it up, I guess. I don't have $1,500 to $3,000 an hour to sit in a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I don't have $1 a minute, $20 for 20 minutes, to go to an oxygen bar in Tokyo, Hollywood, New York City, that are proliferating now like hula hoops, to sit there for 20 minutes to breathe the oxygen to clear my head. I do have about a half a penny per gallon to make my own ozonized water. And why do you never read about this? Because it fixes you. And if you don't go to a doctor to fix you, if you don't go to the priesthood, you're a heretic. Shame on you. You slaves, give your money to the doctors. Don't give it to something worthwhile. Buy their wife a new mink coat. Now, what have I done here? I've taken the 19% by volume of oxygen out of the air. I've put it through a little device which will run about 7 hours on one charge of the 1.25 ampere hour lead-acid gel cell battery that's available at Action Electronics, whose address is in your paper. I put it down this silastic tube and into a stone that's bubbling. Water is highly absorbent of oxygen. This is room temperature and is supposed to last for about 20 minutes, but there's something magical in these new ozonizers where it's still measurable by ORP, oxygen reduction potential meters, in a few hours, and I say doubly to your health. Your body will love this water because it is so fresh, so pure. The interstitial alignment of the crystalline structure, hydrogen and oxygen in the water, is reported to change from dead water, 109 degrees, to what is it, 111 to...
Yeah, it gets, there's a sweet spot at, I think, 102.3 or
Yeah.
something like that.
This rotates the electrons and molecules in the water until this water is literally the water of life. And this idiot has these things for sale for only $200 at booth 45, whereas I've seen the ones at the health food shows in Chicago, Los Angeles, Pasadena for $4,700 to about $7,000. The people making medical ozonizers get about $7,000. The Hansler Company in Germany, when you can smuggle them in through a guy in Louisiana, will sell you a medical ozone machine for $7,000. Why not build your own for about $150? I'm bragging again. And on the last page of your paper, which you can get from Judith in the back row, we have the plans, what you do and how you do it for making your own ozone machine. You have really nothing to buy. And on the next to the last page, which is page 13 in section 2, and a little article, Ozone Revisited, we give you the names and addresses and prices and telephone numbers of the aquarium, tropical fish supplies. Number 1, for an excellent battery-operated unit for a top retail price of $540 and a wholesale price of $324 to make yourself a $6,000 or $7,000 ozone generator that will be one of your favorite things. I take this to breakfast with me in Los Angeles. The people have been sitting there drinking coffee, waiting for me to walk in the door. They descend on me. We make a couple of pitchers of ice water, chilled water that's ozonated, and they snarf it all down. This is better and cheaper and more rapid drinking it than breathing it in an oxygen bar for $20 for 20 minutes. They take it home, put it on their plants. It kills the fungus and the roots, etc. We used to do this with silver colloids, and my God, there'd be people carrying dark prune juice bottles into Carol's restaurant every morning, and we'd be filling it up with free colloids. We did this until we convinced them they could make their own unit for a few dollars. And they did, and they're better and healthier and younger and playing fun and games and keeping their harems fully entertained. So in the paper, we describe in tremendous detail so that even you housewives, and God, have I gotten busted for using that statement in Chicago, can do the 4 things which will give you back to yourselves, take back your power, cure all diseases that are infectious, not broken bones, but things that have infections in your body, which are 1, blood cleaning, blood electrification, silver colloids, magnetic pulsing, and ozone. And yes, sir?
Can, if you have a reverse osmosis unit in your home, can distilled water be used for the ozonator and the silver?
Yes, you can use distilled water, tap water, creek water, sewage water. The colloids will sterilize it. You don't have to buy bottled water if you're in Europe, if you're in Egypt or in Mexico. You had a question, Mark?
Yeah. Bob, if drinking ozonated water oxygenates your blood, what does drinking carbonated water, like seltzer, do to the...
It won't hurt you because CO2 is a natural product, a natural detoxification product. It tastes good, I like it, and it's not going to harm you, but the ozone will definitely help you. Now, how do we know that we're getting ozone in the blood, oxygen in the blood, and we haven't paid $1,500 for an hour in a hyperbaric chamber? At my lab in LA, and I don't carry them around because my legs won't carry all that weight in my suitcase, we have blood oxygen percentage meters. This one is made by Nonin, N-O-N-I-N. It's the smallest unit I know of that's made in America. It's called the ONYX, Onyx. And what happens? You're going to put your finger in this, and some LEDs of different wavelengths shine light through your finger, take a reading of the oxygen that the hemoglobin is carrying in your blood to all the cells in your body. And if we read that a second ago, it said 98. Mine's pretty high because I've been drinking ozone. We think that this is the bottom line. This is no bullshit. It's dropped to 97 at the moment. But if I would drink this glass of water in 2.5 to 4 minutes, 180 seconds to 4 minutes, it goes up to 100 in most cases. I defy you to do that with these hundreds of multi-level products that you buy, like vitamin O, be right to you, peroxide, the oxygenated magnesiums, calciums. This, the more we experiment with it, find the easier and cheaper it is to drink the water instead of trying to talk your local supplier out of medical oxygen, which is forbidden unless you have a prescription by the Food and Drug Administration. That medical oxygen comes out of the same bottle at the welding supply house as the welding oxygen does. Do it. Follow the instructions in your paper and you are free. You've taken back most of your power. You've taken back all of your power over infectious diseases. You had a question?
Are those little units, the oxygen sensor there, do you have those for sale too, or are they for sale?
The question for the tape is, do we have these units for sale? I designed this one, I built it, I used an ozone device that I got from Russ.
Talking about the known in.
Oh, the known-in costs $450 if you're a doctor. They won't sell it to you unless you're an MD. They use these in hospitals. And yes, they are available. And you walk in there and you tell them you're a doctor and they won't check it out. Tell them, well, don't tell them that you're a doctor of divinity from the Universal Church. How many are not a doctor of divinity from the I got my first one for $25 when I was much younger.
Those units, they can also be rented. Up in Canada, we found a medical supply house that would rent us a unit for $100 for a month, which we're doing all our research on the ozone, so something to keep in mind.
So again, we'll repeat this to make it doubly clear.
So if we could just pause and take about a 30-second.
And motorcycles
We're rolling.
in town, and boy, are we going to have a good time down at the Topless Bar. But anyway, the best,
Now we're rolling. Okay.
now we're going to get
We're gonna
somewhere.
get civilized again.
The best blood oxygen meters that I have, I bought several. We have a $2,700 Nellcor, Nellcor. We have a $750 Nellcor, which works almost as well, but doesn't have a chart recorder. And these are fully described with the phone numbers of the company in the paper. I really recommend you get this paper because I worked on that thing for about 6 years, and every few weeks I wake up screaming at midnight and think of some things that have to be changed. If you got one, I was going to give you one. Get Sam up to date here, one of my oldest friends, and he's living in Florida now. But everything you will ever need to know is in this paper about taking back your power. And it does work. It is not my opinion. It is a statement of fact. And if you want to come up here, any doctors, and look at the PCRs, we have them. And yes, you had a question.
The little unit that you just showed us, a blood sensor unit, the little one, is it mentioned in your paper too?
Yes,
Small one?
I think it is. Isn't
No, just the Nellcor.
Just the Nellcor.
You can call, just look in the yellow pages under medical supplies, and you'll see hundreds of ones listed. Just ask for call it a pulse oximeter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question, if I may. What you described here, you mentioned two different units, one for 540, one for 205. How do they differ, and how do they differ from the one that Soda has for sale?
Are they talking about the different sizes, sander generator? That's an interesting.
Up until fairly recently, I felt, honestly, that the Sander, S-A-N-D-E-R company in Germany, made one of the most rugged, reliable, long-lived ozone generators in the world. Lately, after we started running our own tests, don't do this if you don't want to know the truth, we found that what they rate as a 200 milliliter per hour ozone generator, which wholesales for $229 a unit, retails for about $300, isn't exactly what they've claimed. When we looked at the Carl C unit, they were claiming 100 milliliter, but you would think that would mean 100 milliliter per hour. It doesn't. It means 100 milliliter in 12 or 24 hours. So they're going to kid you around and lie to you. So you have to make your own tests, which is why I've personally put out the money for the blood oxygen meters. And let me show you something else here before we get on the answer to your question about what you don't do when you're on this. You'll notice that the federal government in the last month has paid a lot of money to outfit all the police patrolmen with this device, which I have in my hand, which is called an Alcotector, A-L-C-O-T-E-C-T-O-R. Now I've turned on the switch, and this unit is working. I'm going to blow into it. You notice that the little amber light on the bottom shows I have 0 alcohol in my blood. But I'm going to do something here. This is Binaka, a mouth cleaner. Straight to jail. Driving under the influence. I was off the scale here because of the alcohol which was on the surface of my mouth, not in my stomach. I didn't swallow. But let's say that some of you sweet children might accidentally be in a bar someday and have a martini or two. And you don't have a designated driver, and you're not going to pay for a taxi cab home. You get out and drive your car, and you don't quite stop at the stoplight. The policeman pulls you over and holds his flashlight close to your face. The flashlight contains these devices, believe me. And you light up a couple of these things, and you have more than 0.08% alcohol, according to the computer in this. These are about $400 if you buy them. I bought this one in Las Vegas by pretending to be a Los Angeles police officer who'd left my credentials back in Los Angeles when I came over for the weekend. Showed them my money and they sold it to me. Don't worry about prescription filling and being a doctor or what have you. Just go get the stuff and use it. At any rate, I'm going to take a little ozone. Instantly, the ozone turns the ethanol in your blood, methanol if you're broke, into CO2 plus H2O. Now this is going to reset in a second. Sober. No alcohol. So if you want to fool the police and quit and giving them your hard-earned money, and you're stinking drunk, and you'll read more than 0.08%, which is the legal limit in California. They're lowering that this year. Take out your secret ozone generator, bubble a glass of water, drink it, and walk out of there proud with no alcohol showing in your blood, no matter how much is in your stomach, because you've oxidized the alcohol to CO2 and H2O. You have detoxified it. I'm going to tell you a secret story, and my girlfriend's in the back row. In 1951, I was a flight test engineer at Lockheed Aviation. I had an office in Van Nuys, one in Burbank, and one at that time it was Muroc. It wasn't Edwards Air Force Base. The only sporting house within 100 miles was Pancho Barnes' Happy Bottom Riding Club, which was a few miles from Muroc. Pancho Barnes was a female aviatrix. I'm sure Sam has heard about her. Set a lot of records along with Amelia Earhart back in the 30s. And we bad people, pilots, engineers, would roll into Lockheed at Edwards Air Force Base. It is now to North Base. We had old wooden hangars at the time. Drunker than hell, hungover. And I noticed the guys were disappearing into a little room where they had the oxygen bottles and masks. They had the colorimeters, which we wore on our earlobes to tell us when we were getting low on oxygen. It would pump it up. Breathe the oxygen for a few minutes, come out of there all bushy-tailed, ready to do whatever we had to do. Our reaction time was fast again on the reaction time meters. It cured us. The Navy pilots, Army, Air Force pilots, for a while were not permitted to fly until they breathed oxygen because, look, we had $6 million worth of instrumentation on this old 94C. We want you at your best. And if your reaction time is running 3/5 of a second instead of 1/5 to 2/5, you might wreck this plane. So breathe this oxygen, get sharp before you go out there. Now you ask the proprietors of oxygen bars, which are proliferating in New York, Tokyo, and Hollywood, who their biggest customer pool is from. Number one, it's people who are in physical pursuits, construction workers, athletes, runners, bicycle riders, who charge up their blood with oxygen before they do their marathons or bike races and show significantly better performance by stopwatch than the people not taking oxygen. Well, that's logical. Who is your second largest customer pool? Creative people, writers, screenwriters, copywriters, advertising writers, people who had to create, artists. Well, what the hell does this do? When they get oxygen into the cells of their brains start working. It breaks their writer's block, always. It breaks their writer's cramp. They get sharp. They get bushy tail. They can sit down at the computer and not fog out. Well, isn't that interesting? Now, what else can you do with this? We're going to take this little sinker, this weight, this little pipe fitting off of here. We're going to take the air stone off of here. We're going to turn it on.
Don't breathe it.
Put it into my ear.
I can feel it on the other side.
Clear-headed. I do this for a few minutes in each ear. It's called insufflation. You could put it in your rectum like a colonic or an enema. It's absorbed by the arteries in your rectum, gets into your blood, cures things. You can put it in your ear where it goes through the ear canal, through the tympanic membrane into the inner ear, is picked up by the many circulatory capillaries in your ear. I feel wonderful. You had a question?
Yeah, my daughter is amongst thousands, if not millions, of young kids who are really prone to inner ear infections. And she's ruptured her eardrum from having an infected ear.
And puncturing it to get the antibiotics.
My question is, would this alleviate some of that?
Money back guarantee. This will do it. The oxygen, the ozone, will oxidize any infection that you have, and children are just impossibly amenable to many of these infections. So what did I do the other night before I came down here? Because I knew there'd be a lot of coughing little kids and sneezing and hacking on the airplane, and it cost them $75 to clean the filters on Delta aircraft. I took a little extra colloid and some ozone, and normally when I take one of these flights, I'm just a pushover for picking up all of these opportunistic infections that you can't help but get when you sit on that airplane and breathe that dirty air that's being recirculated past all the people that are from Japan and Timbuktu with infections. So laugh at them. If you go to Mexico, don't buy bottled water. Make some cola. You know, these are good things. These are good for you. I'm trying to get you to take back your power. Quit saying, well, it isn't any good. My doctor didn't tell me about it. Well, you're damn right he didn't tell you about it. Or hey, you've got 24 polymerase chain reactions showing total cure of AIDS. Show me 50. You show them 50, they want to see 100. These are death wishers. They don't want to know that they can take control of their own health and get well. That's heresy in this country. In China, you pay the doctor as long as you stay well. I wish we were on that same philosophy, because the doctors make a minimum of a few $100,000 a year, and some of us don't make anything like that. So now we put it back with this pipe fitting to hold it on the bottom of the water container, the pitcher, the tube, the glass, and the stone doesn't tend to float up, which it will do if you don't have a weight on it. And you've got a perfect device for scavenging all the anaerobic things in your body. But they're illegal. Go to the fish store. You know why the fish stores don't have them on the counter? Because the fish live longer and they make their money selling replacements for your dead fish. But in Germany, they use these in all the aquariums, public and private, and the fish last for years and years and years. But not in this country. How many of you have tropical fish?
We all do.
Okay. Those fish die in about 1/10 of their allotted lifespans because they're not getting ozone. Yes, sir.
So if I take an ozonator to any part of the world, I can take any kind of water, ozonate the water, and drink it, and it'll still good?
Not entirely true. The ozone that is made by these huge ozone generators, $100,000, that are used for purifying, detoxifying water, get up to 27%, is it, of ozone?
Yeah, actually, it's on ORP. It goes up to 1,100 millivolts ORP. These large machines are used to kill and actually sterilize water. Our purpose here is to oxygenate. It will sterilize to a point, but if you were going to, like municipalities to sterilize water using ozone, need to have extremely expensive machines. But
A
the
cheap
silver
machine-
colloid is,
Colloid's different. You take this to Mexico, Egypt,
Together, then you can get
you can do
pure
the two
water.
together.
you can use the two together. I use them there that way all the time. If you came into the restaurant this morning, or yesterday morning, not this morning, the waitresses were standing in line for a glass of ozonated water. This morning, we just quietly did it because we wanted to be alone, and we didn't tell her, what are you doing to that water? Oh, we're making an oxygen bar out of that, We just wanted to be private. But in Los Angeles, where I eat, the people are lined up every morning to get it.
What's the government's rationalization in their language? Why ozone and ozone generators are illegal for human use?
For the tape, why are these illegal according to the FDA? Can you answer that?
Yeah, basically, from what I understand from Canada, we have what they call the Workmen's Compensation Board, or WCB, also the Occupational Health and Safety, OSHA. I think we have it down in the States. They generally set a level of ozone machines due to, like, you should not be breathing this ozone in. That was not covered. It is covered in your paper. Do not breathe it in because it can actually hurt the lung tissue. This is not meant for breathing, but it's meant to use, as Bob has shown here. Basically, if there's anything more than 0.06 part per million in air of ozone, the authorities say that's it, that's enough.
If you can smell it, it's too much.
If you can smell it, and that's basically the level. We've tested our unit here that at 12 inches away, you're less than the permissible levels for an 8-hour exposure. So there's absolutely no problem with the unit as long as you're 1 foot away. But if you have any kind of other units, even these professional units, you can get up to many parts per million. And you can hurt your lungs. There are some companies that are putting out ozone generators to the air that actually go above the permissible levels. You need to look into that. So we will not mention any names.
For $1 million.
Yes, but do keep in mind that you need to be below the permissible levels, and these machines do pass those levels. And that's, as far as I can know, I know from what I understand in Canada, it's got to do with levels in the air. And that is a way of regulating it, for using it for health purposes. It's a very easy way to regulate it, so they keep a clamp on it.
I have one of those machines, one of those
Okay.
generators, one of the small, I won't mention the name, but oh, what the heck, they can't sue me. I got one of those little Alpines.
I didn't hear that.
And I assume that if I use it in a big enough room, it will bring the dilution point down to the parts per million that's permissible and safe.
I would
Smell it, it's too much, according to the
yeah.
OSHA.
Really?
I would check with the manufacturer and make sure that they are below the OSHA levels. And it's up to the manufacturer to conform to those levels. We're just saying that the OSHA set those levels, and if you're above them, they say it is unsafe. And so we try to fit in with OSHA as much as we can.
A comment from here, just to finish up. The same company that was mentioned earlier has an adjustment, a variable amount you can set it for. And they tell you, keep it below this line, and if it is is on the line or below it is below 4 parts per million, and that is considered safe by the U.S. government.
But OSHA says that that's 800% more than the safe level. So you'll get an argument from the company, the vendors of the multi-level plan.
You say,
The level is 0.05
all right,
part per million. 0.05.
0.05 parts per million. Theirs put out 312 times more than that.
Okay, 0.4.
Zero.
No, 0.0, a zero after the decimal place,
0.0, right?
0.05.
Okay.
Yes.
They tell you set at 0.04, which is
Okay.
below the 5.
Well, what we're not talking about ozone and air. We are talking about ozone and water. So maybe we need to just go over the subject. And we're just talking about ozone in water here only. So we shouldn't get into a debate on ozone and air machines. That's not what we're talking about.
I swear I'll never tell the truth about some of these products again because they'll sue me for libel and slander.
But you didn't mention it, Bob. We did.
Okay, I didn't hear that. I'm innocent. I'm so pure.
Can you tell me though what the difference between these two machines, the machine there and the machine that they make? I never
Okay,
understood the difference there.
you know the test we did with the ORP?
Oh, God,
You might
yes.
want to mention that. It's an interesting test.
Well, being an ex-physicist when I was much younger, of course, I like to have instruments that read these independent of my own opinions or reality. And I've gone to a great deal of expense for reading the oxygen reduction potential, and I found the source of supply. Thanks very much. Ulysses, would you stand up for a second? Here's my benefactor because he bought me a series of things on oxygen and ozone and the meters yesterday, which I'm profoundly, sincerely grateful for, Ulysses. Thank you. So I'm going to share them with you. And it tells you where to get an oxygen point meter for $109 and an ORP meter for $249 instead of the thousands, you know, that you can pay for this stuff.
That's a cheaper price, I found.
Much cheaper, and he's found Ulysses has done a beautiful job in going along with my Scotch Presbyterian philosophy of save your money. Give it to somebody besides the anyway, thanks very much again, Ulysses. And we like to instrument exactly what we're doing because we find that the bosses of these multi-level companies selling all this marvelous equipment, in my opinion, don't do that. And so when you take your unit, which I have done with this unmentionable brand on several occasions, and have it read by the officials who in our society check ozone generated by Xerox machines and other equipment to make sure it's at a safe level, they're totally unsafe, and a human being shouldn't be around one if the switch is on. But these are two separate opinions. I won't offer mine because I'm being sued, potentially being sued for $1 million because I had some unkind things to say about their ozone machine in Denver, Colorado in August of last year. And they wrote up a lawsuit against me. And so you can't tell the truth about this. All I could say is you take it and you have it read by an expert at OSHA, Department of Health, and you take their answer. Never mind my opinion, although I've done all this. Yes?
Your diagram on page 14 doesn't show a power source. Is that the unit you have here?
It shows, yes, the unit I have here works on a battery. But this one is assumed to work off 110 volts. So you buy an air pump, little thing up here, at the aquarium supply store. They run from $14 to $38. They always plug into 60 hertz AC if they're made for Americans. The ozone generator, which is generally set to 115 volts in the USA, but also 240 in case they're for Germany. And that's all you really need. And the one that I like to take around, if I carried this and an extension cord to reach from our table in Carol's restaurant into the kitchen where we could get AC to run this, the extension cord would weigh about 15 times more than this unit. So I put a battery in it. Well, a friend of mine built it according to my design. And this will run anywhere. It'll run in Egypt, it'll run in Mexico, it'll run out in the Tules. You can put it in your camper, in the back of your car, and it works. So what we're doing is getting the price of these from several $1,000s to down to a couple of hundred, and Russ will have a unit that works on batteries. And I used to, people accuse me of being a Martian, that I'm an alien that used to be a space captain a million years ago. And if we couldn't put everything in one briefcase, you couldn't take it on the spaceship. At least that's my fantasy. So I try to make things as small and compact and energy efficient as possible. But other people try to put them on great big carts, put bells and whistles on them, and charge a lot of money. I'm diametrically opposed. Yes, sir.
Yes. What will this ozone water or the blood electrifier do for blocked arteries or emphysema or anything like that?
I know what it'll do for them, but I can't answer you because it's a felony. My doctorate was in physics, not in medicine. And if anyone asks a health question and I answer it without having a license to practice medicine, I've committed a felony. But I hear that it'll help. Was there a question? I'm sorry, sir. I just can't do that on tape because this tape goes all over. Hello.
I have the same question also about hypothyroidism.
About hypothyroidism.
Hypothyroidism.
I don't know about that. I just know that when you unload the immune system, the body gets better all across the board.
You're also going to mention the what you should not take when you're...
All right, let's do that now because this is important. Your paper mentions in here, along with a lot of other trivia, a discovery which was made about 1993. I'm going to read it to you from the we say in here, but you must avoid ingesting, putting into your mouth, any medications or medicinal herbs or oriental drugs, and mainly garlic. I got an argument on this all the time. I'll prove it. During treatments, since blood electrification can cause electroporation, electroporation, of cell membranes, and can thus cause tremendous increase of molecular transport into cells. Now don't forget, your blood carries these nutrients to all the cells in your body. When these nutrients, vitamins, minerals, garlic are in your blood, and you electrify it by a time-varying electrical field, the little cells have doors and windows that open up and absorb up to 30 times the amount of the vitamins, minerals, medicines. In other words, if you can take one thyroid pill a day because your doctor's prescribed it, and you take that thyroid pill and then you do the blood electrification or the magnetic pulsing, your body will think you have taken 30 thyroid pills in an extreme case, no effect in a not extreme case, 20 times to 10 times in an average case. This doesn't affect everyone, but we have to put it in here to avoid liability. Allow several days to permit body to eliminate herbs, garlic, and other potentially toxic medications, vitamins, and supplements, leaving their traces in your blood at the time of electrification. See J.C. Weaver, Harvard MIT Division of Health Sciences and Technology, in the Journal of Cellular Biochemistry, Book 21, page 426 to 435, first discovered and published in 1993. Now, we didn't know this, but a guy had eaten a little garlic in his salad dressing, had done this, and he got quite ill. We had to find out why. We had a teaching university in Northern California run the tests on garlic. The doctor that did it said we wouldn't dare publish on this. We'd be answering angry letters the rest of our life. But the sulfone, S-U-L-F-O-N-E, hydroxyl, H-Y-D-R-O-X-Y-L, in the garlic is a deadly poison. And yet we have been told that garlic is good for you. If you rub a clove of garlic on the sole of one of your feet, in a couple of minutes you can smell it on your wrist. Like DMSO and other things, it goes into your body past all the barriers, blood, brain, corpus callosum, gets into your body, and anything that is around you that's poison is carried in where it's normally blocked by the blood-brain barrier, etc. You all know that gangsters during Prohibition were taught to I know you know it, rub the ends of their bullets in garlic. If they winged you, gave you a flesh wound, you would die, because like rattlesnake venom, garlic is poisonous in your blood. You all know if you're organic gardeners and you can't get DDT because it's been illegal here for years, garlic will kill every single insect known. You put it in your garden, the insects don't come around or they die. You know that if you want to kill somebody, a couple of years ago at Global, when a friend of mine, Jim Solomon, was selling blowguns, he was stopped from doing this. He took me out in the hall. He said, Bob, you want to kill somebody, you got an enemy? Take a clove of garlic, shove the dart into the garlic, pull it out. All you got to do is wing them and they will die. This is one of the top secret poisons used by the Central Intelligence Agency, like oleander leaves. And all I can say to you, if you don't believe me, and many of you won't, knock off garlic for 21 days. Don't take any salad dressing, antipasto. Take a little bit of garlic on the 22nd day after your body is detoxed from the garlic you've had before. Go back to work, 10, 2, and 4, 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Try to concentrate on your computer. You'll get a headache, you can't do it, your work slows down to a snail's pace. If you're a woman particularly, and you have migraine headaches, or headaches every day of your life, and the pills have worn out, Advil, Bufferin, things like that, get off garlic, you'll never have another headache unless you're doing something extremely toxic. I tell this to people, they want to fight me. Like vegetarians say, oh, we're getting a full complement of essential aminos. I say, you must be a millionaire, because if you're eating soy and other plant protein, you're going to have to spend $800 to $900 a month in the health food store getting the amino acids. There are 23 essential amino acids, in spite of Gary Null, who says that they're all present in vegetables. They're not. You're not getting them. Your body is dying. When they run these tests on children sent to vegetarian schools like Seventh-day Adventists, they find that later in life they develop orthopedic problems because they were not getting the amino acids their bodies needed to build their tissue and bone study, but they won't talk about this. They won't admit it. They think that vegetarianism is better for you. And I've had people come up wanting to fight with me because I was telling them the truth. Look this up for yourself. Don't waste my time telling you things you should already know. We're telling you things that have been tested, that are not my opinion, that are statements of fact. And I'll tell you that the many, many doctors, homeopathic, naturopathic, radionic, chiropractors who've gotten their patients off of all garlic and who've tested it again say those patients would never touch garlic for the rest of their lives. I personally love garlic, and if I'm not going to use my brain, I'll have a little on my salad dressing, Caesar salads. But if I'm going to go to a board of directors meeting or try to write or do anything intelligent or fly an airplane, I don't touch it. Dr. Barron, B-A-R-R-O-N, the flight surgeon at Lockheed in the 1950s, would come around and remind us, we're paying you partially not to eat any garlic before you fly one of our airplanes because it slows you down. And they didn't know why until 1969, when I was the president and CEO of the largest builder of ethical EEG biofeedback equipment in America, that the garlic literally poisoned the ability of your left and right hemisphere to synchronize together. And where you might feel fine, like when you've had a few martinis, you're silly to people who are looking at you. Well, anyway, enough on that. We could talk about garlic the rest of the night. You don't want to believe this. Your mothers ate garlic. They told you it was all right. Mothers, before 1906, the Harrison Act, 1910, fed their babies simple soothing syrup. It was available in Sears Roebuck, in any drugstore. Their babies slept and they didn't cry. What was simple soothing syrup? Morphine sulfate. And they raised hundreds of thousands of addicts on morphine because they fed their babies something that was available in any store in America before the Harrison Act outlawed opium, laudanum, morphine, dozens of other things. So this is true, just don't touch garlic. If you want to be well, if you want to be sick, eat all the garlic you want. Yes, Sam?
Didn't you tell me that also caffeine and alcohol and nicotine were bad?
If you're doing blood electrification, I think I'd stay off of alcohol. A friend of mine who was in heavy construction would stop by the world-famous Formosa Bar and Grill on Santa Monica Boulevard in Hollywood and have a pitcher of beer every night on his way home. This is a true story. This night, he stopped in and had a 6-ounce, a baby glass, not an 8-ounce glass of beer. He was addicted to it, was going to wire up when he got in the car and drive home on the blood cleaning. He had a hepatitis C. He took the glass of beer, felt great, got in his car, hooked up the wires to his wrist, started to drive out of the parking lot there at Santa Monica and Formosa, got about a half a block. He was so drunk, he could hardly control his car. There was a Ralph's parking lot at La Brea in Santa Monica. He got in and slept for 2.5 hours before he could drive home, because instead of having a 6-ounce glass of beer, the electroporation had given him the equivalent of 30 6-ounce glasses of beer. Another lady loved her coffee in the morning. Put the coffee pot on, habit, had some coffee, did blood electrification, did not sleep for 2 days and 3 nights because it was the same as if she had had 30 cups of coffee and she was so wired. She said, "Bob, I didn't believe a word you've ever said, but I know I do." Caffeine, alcohol, and I hate tobacco. Tobacco is 4.5 times more physically addictive than heroin and many times more dangerous for you. And the tobacco companies have never told you this. They hid this from Congress. They had this report, which was done by Neil Sorensen and D. Crover at the VA Hospital Sepulveda in 1974. I saw this report. So you are the victims of people who are taking your money for things which aren't helping you. Now, when you're not doing blood electrification, or when you have to take prescription remedies, cut the blood unit off, turn the switch off, put it in the drawer, and take your medicine. Do not do blood electrification or magnetic pulsing for 24 hours again after you've taken vitamin C, niacin, beta-carotene, the things that are obviously poison, vitamin A, which have upper limits, because this gives your body time to get some of these toxins, which they are, out of your blood plasma before you electrify again, and could increase the dosage of whatever's left. And a lot of people say, hey, I'm on Micronese, Diatribe, I'm on diabetic medicine, I'm on thyroid medicine, I'm on yama, yama, yama. I have to take it. I say, well, if you want to save your life, take it very sparingly or cut the pills in 1/30th size. It's hard to do. They'll crumble. Or else don't take any until 24 hours after you've taken it before and do the blood electrification. Our philosophy here is first, do no harm. I had to make absolutely certain, using myself and a lot of volunteers, that everything we tell you in here will not cause you to get sicker or more problems. That means that people who have demand-type heart pacers, who detect the little cardiac signals, should not put these on each wrist so the blood is going through the heart. They should put it on one wrist so your blood path is shunted here at the center, as you will see in the stuff we stole from Gray's Anatomy. In other words, we've made this as safe as is humanly possible to make it. And unless you swallow the unit and choke on it, you're not going to get sick if you do this. But if you put it on your wrist, you're not going to disturb your demand-type heart pacers, etc. So what you're getting here is many years of work that's safe, tested, proven, and any health professionals who want to look at these PCRs, you're welcome to do this. We're coming close to the end of this, and if my watch is still telling time, we've got 15 minutes.
Question?
But let's do more questions while we have time.
Question?
Let's take the lady in the back.
What about insulin-dependent diabetics? Does the insulin multiply by 30? Or is that close enough?
Diatribe, micronese are medicines. You do not take them and do blood electrification because it multiplies them by 30. Says it over and over in the paper. I hope that doesn't offend you to hear it, but this is the truth. Yes, next to you.
Is there any difference in the using either the ozone or the colloidal, making it in glass or in plastic? Is it a problem?
Yes, theoretically, the plastic is not impervious to oxygen. It oxidizes. A friend of mine who makes a lot of colloid for his neighbors and his animals makes it in Pyrex, borate glass, quartz glass, and claims it's a better quality. I don't know this, but I suspect it's probably true. So by all means, make the colloids and the ozone in glass containers. Thank you. That was a very good question.
Did you say the Pyrex was okay?
Pyrex is a form of boron silicate glass, and it's okay. Yes, sir.
Could you comment on the BT6? I'm interested in that unit.
The BT6 is a doctored-up BT5 that's got timer circuits, so if you go to sleep, it'll cut itself off in 20, 40, or 60 minutes. It's got a built-in 7.83 hertz amplitude modulation in case you want to get a little spacey or high on this or do remote viewing. It's got an intermittent setting in position 2 of the switch so that it goes on and off and on and off and you don't acclimate to it. And when the light's flashing one time, position 1, it has the identical waveform harmonic content of the BT5. Now when I use a brain tuner, which is if I'm undergoing a IRS review or I have something to be terribly nervous about, I personally prefer the BT5. That was my first baby. I designed that in 1983. I got everything short of the Nobel Prize. I got the Fetzer Award for pioneering work in electromedicine after they cured thousands of addicts, insomniacs, stress and depression patients. And I'm not talking about it today, so forgive me for saying what I have. They are available through some of my distributors. They're guaranteed. It's the best unit made in America. It's far superior to $7,000 units made by Meg Patterson, Megnet, Neurosystems in England. The only other one that was in our class was Neurosystems in Garland, Texas. It went out of business about 5 years ago. And ours is guaranteed to do the end results, but that's all I'm going to say about that, so thank you.
If you cannot use the electrification, can you still use the silver and
Yes.
the ozone?
The ozone and the silver do not cause electroporation whatsoever. Only reversing biphasic current can cause your cells to open up and absorb more vitamins. Yes, sir.
What are the known long-term effects of colloidal silver on the brain?
I haven't seen any. According to the experts, it gets out of your body in about 7 days because the particle size is so small. If you take silver protein, it can turn your skin kind of a silver gray. It can poison you. Silver proteins, silver nitrate, and things are poisonous. It used to be demanded by California law that you had to put silver nitrate in the eyes of all newborn babies who are picking up infections by going through the birth canal. We say avoid silver proteins like are for sale at some of these fairs. Look on it. If it says silver protein, don't touch it. Use silver colloids. They're entirely different. Yes, sir, you had a question?
Yeah, you were going to tell us earlier about a 4-day treatment in Puerto Rico, a clinic in Puerto Rico that was guaranteed.
Yeah.
What they actually did.
I mentioned just in passing that our first results, over which we got so wildly enthusiastic because we had the only cure in America, proven cure, took 21 days. And if you did it any sooner than that, by leaving the blood cleaner on for many hours instead of 1 hour to 2 hours, the person could get extremely uncomfortable in his own detoxification products. He had Herxheimer's syndrome. We cure him in 4 days now with a money-back guarantee by detoxifying them rapidly. The ways you detoxify, if you have a lot of money, are colonics. Hot tub spas with ozone machines on the spas, several $1,000s more than the price of the sauna, hot tub. Body bags, where you moisten your body, put yourself in a plastic bag, zip it up, pour ozone into the bag. Liver, homeopathic liver, lemon and olive oil, real life liver detoxification. You don't need any of that, but they will speed the detoxing process by drinking ozonized water, which is why we're so happy with the results we've been getting lately, and our AIDS patients aren't breaking out in rashes and pus running down their faces and their legs, and boils and carbuncles under the skin, and itching. My God, we've had people who wanted to commit suicide. They itch so badly because the skin is the largest organ of elimination in the body. So just follow the damned instructions, which I've made idiot-proof, baby-proof, housewife-proof, forgive me. Do it, and you'll get well. Don't do it, and you've got a death wish. Yes, sir.
Can you use the 2 water systems for juices instead of water?
You can, but you won't like it. When I first made ozonizers, I carried it around and I would have a glass of lemonade for dinner. And I tried ozonating the lemonade, and what was left in there were all the toxic waste products for all the additives they'd put in this lemonade made from concentrate, as it said so politely on the can. And I almost spit it out of my mouth. It wasn't lemonade anymore, it was a goddamn bunch of chemicals.
How about like 100% orange juice?
Orange juice is nature's junk food. You can make colloids in orange juice, but I suggest you don't oxidize the sugars and the things in it that your body is craving by putting ozone in it. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
I'm telling you, there isn't any taste to that stuff anyhow.
What?
There isn't any taste to that stuff anyhow. I take it all the time.
Okay, good.
Can I have that you've got left there? I've got a little eyedropper bottle.
Here, let's...
I was carrying with me.
Maybe dissipated by now.
And it's getting old.
No, we shouldn't do that now. It's probably getting old, I think. Yeah, it's turning gray.
To hell with it. This is good for her. I take the responsibility. Let's do this for a couple of minutes. You come up here and get it and drink to our health.
I will. And can I take the rest of it up and fill my eyedropper bottle? I put it up my mouth.
If you want to kill a cold, a flu, a rhinovirus in 20 minutes, I have a fogging bottle, not a spray bottle, You don't want a water pistol here of ozone on the sink in the bathroom here in the hotel. And I spray it up my nose and I inhale briskly to get this colloid up into my sinuses. When it gets there within 20 minutes, it has eliminated the 100 or so known rhinoviruses, and now there are 110, counting the fowl flu in China and the swine flu that killed 60 million Americans in 1918, etc. And I'm happy to say that nobody in our crowd of friends, our little pad of disciples in Los Angeles, has had the flu or a virus in several years. Wonderful. A doctor named Rinaldo in Juarez, not Tijuana, Juarez, Mexico, has about a yellow school bus full of grade school students arrive at his clinic every day of the week because flu is just pandemic in Mexico because of the sanitation problems. And he's gotten international publicity on the fact that he's the doctor that cures colds in 20 minutes. And these little kids with the cold can't go home. There's nobody there to look after them. And he just sprays this up their nose. If they're really lying down with 106 fever and carried off the bus, he puts a blood cleaner on them for a few minutes. They get up and go home and start playing and having a wonderful time. Now you come up here and you drink this and you toast the health of this beautiful audience that we have tonight. And warning, if you're like I am and you drink this, you get a little bit high on it. And it's the exact opposite of an alcohol high. And what it is, it's the oxygen getting into my brain cells, my poor old 73-year-old brain cells, and making me frisky.
What if it'll do anything for my 86
Hey, let's face the world and find out, baby. Okay, this is ready for you now. So just come on up here and let the television see you and how healthy you are. And take it back with you.
To your health.
Thank you. Turn around and show them how beautiful you are. Did you say 86? Marry me.
You couldn't handle it, kid.
Uh-oh. Touche.
I'll return the jug to the hotel.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you.
The ozone will die in about 20 minutes. The colloid will be there for many, many, many days. Yes, ma'am.
How much do you drink a day?
Ooh. She asked how much I drink in a day. I pig out on it. I'm just getting better every day.
I mean, more than one glass, or?
Oh, I drink 3 or 4 glasses at breakfast and 2 or 3 at lunch, and as long as they'll keep bringing me water at night, because I like to work late on the computer, the phone isn't ringing, and it's changed my life for the better. And want to tell them about your many, many hour drive? With
Good question. Ozone, are we talking about ozone or the colloid?
We're talking about ozone in this case.
Okay, as far as the colloidal.
Yeah, I had an interesting, we had just put together an ozone generator, and we had a 9-hour car drive to the interior of British Columbia, where I live, going on a vacation. And on the way home, we had fully ozonated the water, and I was driving the van of people, family and friends, and I kept drinking the ozonated water. Here's something very interesting what we found. If you ozonate, in this case we just had a plastic container because we had bought some water, like a Crystal Springs water out of the local grocery store. That's all we had. So we put the ozone generator into it and let it bubble about a half an hour because of the quantity of water. And we capped it. What's interesting there is that the ozone actually gets trapped inside a solution, and every time we open it, we could still smell the ozone. Well, I drove the full 9 hours drinking this ozonated water, not really thinking about it. And my wife said to me, she said, "You haven't stopped and had a break." And I went, this is quite extraordinary. If anybody's driven for 9 hours straight, you're ready to pull off the road. And all of us in the car, we weren't taking rest stops. And we couldn't figure out what it was. This is where the early years, when we just put this unit together, and we all realized this is the ozonated water. So we're quite surprised by that. I guess we're running. I just want to say quickly for our viewers who are listening, getting the patent, for instance, it is on the internet. I do have an internet address if you can download it. The address is www.sota, S-O-T-A, dash, a dash like a minus sign, INC for ink.com. I'll say that once again, www.sota-inc.com. And also for the listeners, if they need any information, we can be reached at 800-224-0242.
Do it again slowly.
1-800-224-0242. We do also have a free newsletter which keeps you up to date on the latest breaking news that Bob brings out, and also what we find out as feedback from many of the customers who are using these devices. And you'll notice there'll be many testimonials also available on the internet. It's quite a wealth of information. That's it for me.
Keep going, Russ. You're doing great.
Sorry?
I believe I was included on that.
Yes, at our booth, we also have a mailing list. If you want to sign that mailing list, you will get a free newsletter. Now, this mailing list is totally confidential. I give you my word of honor. It will not go out to anybody. It is totally confidential. Will not go out to any MLMs. Will not be sold to anybody. But it is get a free service to get you up to date, to get the information on these particular protocols that Bob has outlined today. And we're up to about I think we're up to five issues of the newsletter, which goes through each of these steps also in detail, mostly feedback from people like yourselves who've used it, stories that come forward. You are all the researchers. You're all part of the research team. This is all research instrumentation. And the more you feed back, the more this adds to the research, whether it's how well it's worked and how maybe it may not have worked for you that time. Whatever it is, the more we feed back, the more information you put into it. But we've been overwhelmed with the successes that we've heard back from the people. It's been truly quite amazing. And I'd rather, Bob, you want to
Thank you, Russ.
any more questions? Or?
And I think I cut you off on a question here.
How much of the colloidal silver do you have a day?
I drink about 16 to 20 ounces a day of 2 to 3 parts per million, and I haven't turned yellow yet. Or I think it's great, and I'm so healthy now. I don't recognize myself.
Just comparing that to some of the little bottles where you put in so many drops, as opposed to glasses or ounces that you're.
Well, I think if you believe in something, you've got the shamanistic effect, and your placebo, your mind is senior to all of it.
Yeah, I just want to know what you did. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello there.
Yes, you make the colloidal silver with boiling distilled water. Does it have a longer shelf life?
We think so, but we found lately that the colloidal silver has a limited shelf life, because if you send it to a lab, the colloids are still there in the same quantities pretty much, that hasn't plated out on the sides of the bottle, but the electrical charge has vanished, so it isn't as active as it was. So we say that it's so cheap, use it, pour it down the drain, and make it next time. Why store it in whiskey bottles? You look like a drunk.
I know at one time you said 2 years possibly.
Yeah, the colloid will last for 2 years, this is true, but the activity of the colloid might not.
How about freezing?
Well, George Burrell, who's Wally Grotz's half-brother, the peroxide man, will freeze it occasionally to clarify it. And some of the scale and silver chloride, which comes from NaCl, potassium chloride, salt in the water, hard water, will drop to the bottom as sort of gray scale. But I don't like to do that. We say don't freeze it. That's just my opinion. Yes?
On the schematics, it shows a 27-volt version of your
Yeah.
your blood proof. What's the difference between the 27 and the 9? What's going on there?
Well, the 9-volt will take about 3 times longer, and since 27 is the correct voltage for the blood cleaner, we use that output voltage at full blast to make the colloid, And most people don't want to wait even 2 or 3 minutes.
But on the blood purifier, you're just using 9-volt version.
We're using-
9 volt is boosted. It has
It has a voltage multiplier which takes it to 27 before we're running the integrated circuits and the output.
If you're in medicine, can you use the magnetic coil?
The magnetic coil will cause electroporation. We mentioned in the article, don't do them and don't take medicines. It might harm you. It does not harm me. I've tested everything in this paper so thoroughly on myself because I am trying to avoid liability and make it safe. But some people are subject to electroporation, and they should not take medicines and do this at the same. What do you think about that, Russ?
I absolutely agree with Bob. Remember, these are introducing microelectric currents. Definitely the blood cleaner is going to do it prominently because you're getting it right into the bloodstream. Magnetic pulsar to a lesser degree, but again, why would we even err on the side of anything but safety here? So what we're saying is that this is where people need to take a responsibility. We can tell them the most that we can tell them here. We do not recommend that you mix it with any kind of pharmaceutical, anything that's going to, and multiplied by 30 times, if it did cause a reaction, that is your rule of thumb, but you need to use your own good judgment and never do this to create harm. That's not the intent here. So I would say be cautious of these, and if a person is on medication, this is not for them.
Right. I second the motion thoroughly. Had so many important things to say, and here it is, 9:30, and this seminar is theoretically over. Just do it, you'll get better. And forgive us when we talk about this in 15 years if we're all still alive on this planet, and it's improved even more. But if you do these 4 things, blood electrification, silver colloids, magnetic pulsing, and ozone, no matter how healthy you little puppies are right now, you will have no idea how wonderful you'll feel when your immune systems are totally functioning again. And to prove this, go to any dark field microscopist, and there are dozens of them in LA. Have him take a drop of your blood, put it under the cover slip, look at it under the microscope, and the spaces between the white cells, the red cells, the leukocytes, the all these things are just teeming with microorganisms. And he's going to point to them, and you're not going to know what you're seeing, and he's going to sell you some bottles of enzymes. Arrgh. But go back in 3 weeks, same microscopist, same microscope, let him take a drop of your blood and look at it. What in the hell have you been doing? You've put us out of business. You have immortal blood. There are no bacteria, pathogens, fungus. You cannot see the viruses without an electron scanning microscope. There's nothing in your blood that doesn't belong there. And this is how immortal blood was discovered 4 years ago by Michael Coyle, C-O-Y-L-E, in Boulder, Colorado, who took a drop of Mike Seiler's blood, gave him a reading, nothing here to take any medicine for, threw the slide with the cover slip over the blood into his little wooden box of toxic waste substances under his bench. Happened to look down there because the man hadn't picked the stuff up and burned it in 28 days, and one of those slides near the top, the blood was still yellow. It hadn't turned dark brown, had not crenated, had not oxidized, fibrinogen had not set in, clotting. Put it on his microscope, the blood cells were still swimming around. And the average half-life of normal, that's us poor sick humanoids that die at 75 years old, those cells on that microscope slide were still alive, had circled the wagons, had done something to stop the oxidation, or the drying out, the dehydration. He looked at that same slide 2 months later, and the blood was still alive. He called up Mike, in Boulder and coined the phrase that day of immortal blood. What will your blood be like if your immune system is restored, which it will be, as provable by dark field microscopy? You begin getting healthier and healthier and happier and happier. And I'm about to start my second childhood here. And don't laugh. Well, anyway, we're at the end of the seminar. You've been an incredibly great audience. I would really sincerely recommend that if you haven't done it by now, you get a copy of this paper, in which we have tried to answer every question that we've had in 8 years, bright or stupid. We've tried to get around to taking care of those questions in this paper. It does have about $20,000 worth of research in there. I've been offered money to write a book on this, which is going on late night television infomercial. The book is going to be up in the $20-some range, but you can get all of the information here tonight for $5, which covers our Xeroxing fee and probably part of my expenses because I sell absolutely nothing. Get the paper, have a long, happy, beautiful, prosperous, libidinous life, and we'll see you guys in heaven or hell. So thanks for being here tonight.